Hey guys, Keith Keller, Melbourne, Australia. And we have a bumper show today. Maybe my best ever. It's going to a LinkedIn Live. It's a LinkedIn Live event. It's going to YouTube and it's going to the new look Twitter. We tested the new look Twitter yesterday. It looks fantastic. So we're going to have a really amazing show about what is coming in 2022 and how you can prepare. Four fantastic ways you can prepare for 2022 right now. We've got guests from all over the world: Jamaica, Canada, Melbourne, Australia, Brisbane, Perth, Sydney, all over the world. You wait. This is going to be this is really going to be great. So we're going to move on. Someone's got their mic on. Can you turn your mic off? Okay. So it's live and things happen. And we got to run with it. And this is really what we're talking about today. So we're going to start with the concept of, we actually have 4 topics today, and the show will go about 2 hours, and every half hour we're going to change the tone. There's 4 main topics. What is social audio? It's a big topic, and it's huge at the moment. We're going to riff on that. We're going to talk a lot about live streaming and virtual events. This is a huge trend. You know, a lot of people just don't want to go back into the city and go back to working in the office. We're going to try and get our head around what is the metaverse. I'm not really even sure I really know what that means, but we've got some people coming in at about 9 p.m. Eastern to talk about that. And then we're going to bring it home with the idea, well, what does this mean for the future of online networking? Are we really going to go into the city and do those silly little events where 100 people turn up in a room? I'm not going to those anymore. But are we going to these anymore? And let's just decide. But let's start with the idea of what is social audio. It's a big topic, and you may not even have heard of it yet. But I'm going to bring in Chris and Samantha on this, and everyone else can get a turn depending on their experience. But Chris, I want you to lead this. Tell me what you think social audio is, and where is it going?
Hey, nice to be here, Keith. Thanks for bringing me up. So, what is social audio? Social audio has been around for 20 years or so and started out with podcasting, but now we are redefining the term, and it's so much more. We have well over 60 plus different mobile apps and even some desktop apps that are really basically redefining what social audio will be in the future. We now see these apps in categories such as podcasting apps, audio, video, chat rooms, dating apps, along with some highly specialized apps that provide social audio as a software as a service and spatial audio. So the big 3 companies in social audio would include Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, and likely Spotify Green Room. But I believe social audio has become the new it phrase for online marketing. We all have a new exciting opportunity to leverage these virtual spaces where creators can discuss their brand and connect, collaborate together, and lead conversations on topics that matter to their specific audience. We're also forming new friendships much faster, especially during the pandemic era, and finding new ways to network and collaborate without requiring travel, without social distancing, and high cost, as you mentioned earlier, Keith. I think we can leave it there unless you want me to keep on going.
No, let's really begin. That was a great introduction. Let me really pick up on what you said there. So social audio is the it phrase. It's the absolute biggest thing in 2021. Clubhouse, Twitter, Spotify Green Room, Deep Dive, which we all thought was going to be bought out by LinkedIn, but it turns out they're going to run their own. They're spending $25 million on making one themselves. And they're going to be in the social audio game. What is social audio? It's just the idea of talking to your friends on an app instead of doing this with video. You don't have to get dressed up. You don't have to have a shave. You don't have to buy a new shirt. You don't have to do your hair. You don't need a light. You don't need a mic. You don't need a webcam, right? I can't believe I haven't done this before. It's so good. But I'll tell you who introduced me, Samantha. And I'm going to bring Samantha in. What about that for a segue? So Samantha introduced me to social audio. I want to hear from you, Samantha. What do you think of social audio, and what do you think's moving it? Where are we going with it, and why do you love it? We've got you on mute there. Let me just unmute you.
Sorry. Yeah, I love it for 1,000 reasons. Mostly what I love, I'm just going to jump off a little bit of what Chris said. Social audio, for any of you who don't know what it is, it's also, some people call it live audio. So it's sort of like a podcast live. So anyone can tune in while it's going on. The cool thing is there's an interaction built in. So we have people who can listen, and then there's a set number of people who can come up, what we call stage, and you get to talk. So the coolest thing is you could have, like, I know over on Clubhouse, when it first came out, there's like Elon Musk in there, and then you could have like a 19-year-old from India literally right there, ask him a question.
Yeah.
Nowhere else can you do this. So think it's sort of like a Zoom/podcast. Today, I was on a Twitter space with NASA was releasing some amazing new science. Like they're talking remapping galaxies, completely redoing all the education systems. 5,000 people were listening to this live audio, social audio. And they were bringing people up. Anyone in the listeners of the 5,000 could request the mic and come up and ask these professionals questions. Like anyone, people who are into astronomy, people who are moms, people who are teachers, anything. What was cool about this, what I loved that was different than anything else, I was sitting in the room and looking through like these 5,000 pictures, because what happens is when a Twitter space, which is this live audio, your profile picture shows up. And so you can scroll through the room, and unlike a podcast, you have no idea who in the world is listening. But when you're in live audio, you can literally see your friends. So I'm friends with quite a few people on this panel. And whenever I'm in a social audio room, like last night, I jumped into one Keith was running. He ran it for, I think, 4 hours. I was there about 2. Chris jumped in. Yeah, we see each other's photos. We get to talk like live time, and we can go in and out. Like nowhere else can you do this. And the networking, oh my gosh, it's like unbelievable. It's like networking on steroids.
Let me pick up on what you're saying there, Samantha. You introduced me to it on a call we did in this format, StreamYard.
Yeah.
And I tried it. And because it's so simple, and most importantly, because Melbourne's in lockdown and I can't go anywhere anyway, I'm doing one every day. And the thing that's really important to understand about social audio, if you've never done it, is that you've got an app on your phone and you push start. And that's it. That's as simple as it gets.
Join.
And then people join. No, when you start one, you start it.
Oh yeah,
it goes, and then people come. And yesterday Tuesday I did a Twitter space, and I got to tell you, this feels a bit weird, but I was talking to myself for about 20 minutes. Hey, it's Keith Keller, and it's Melbourne, Australia, and there's no one here yet, so I'm just going to riff on what we're talking about, and hopefully people will come. And it feels a bit weird. But eventually people do come. They find it. We're getting better at this. We're getting better at the communities. And at the height of the call, which indeed did go 4 hours, I'll tell you about that in a minute, because I was making a sandwich, I was making the lunch, I was doing things. I was walking around the house doing things. I was still very productive, actually. But I just happened to have my phone in my pocket talking to my friends. We had 309 people on that call. And at one stage, we had 46 people in the room at one time. Mm-hmm. And the thing that's exciting about social audio, which is completely different to this idea, is that you can have 2 co-hosts and up to 12 speakers at once and unlimited amounts of listeners. So we're right at the beginning. We're right at the beginning of this phrase that most people haven't even heard the phrase. They don't even know what it is, which is exactly why I'm doing this show. How can you prepare for 2022? Start Twitter Spaces. Have a go. Just turn it on and have a go. Just join a few. I'm doing them every day. Just come and join mine. And with that in mind, I might bring Gia in, because Gia has been on several of my Twitter Spaces and she loves it. And a big hello to Gia in Kuala Lumpur. So tell us what you think about social audio, Twitter Spaces in general, and where do you think it's going?
Hi, everyone. First off, I want to thank you, Keith, for organizing this and hosting this amazing event with global speakers from literally all over the world, sharing their experiences, which brought us all together, which is this virtual events and social audio. I think social audio is here to stay. And honestly, as a mom working from home, not just because of the pandemic, but from a long time ago, social audio has literally saved my career. because as a mom, you're always running around. Sometimes we just can't do events. Sometimes we can't be here and do this all the time. So you feel you're missing out. But with social audio, I can literally just take it with me everywhere I go. Now with Twitter Spaces, I can network, for example. Like there are many forms of social audio, but my favorite so far is Twitter Spaces. So I can take it with me anywhere. Like I can be listening and contributing and growing and networking while I'm shopping, I'm doing groceries, I'm with my kids doing homework, or I'm doing work here for a client. So it provided a platform for a lot of people who didn't have constant and consistent access to information, and a platform for a lot of people who just couldn't fly for events, who couldn't contribute to share their ideas, to share their bright perception of different topics that we discuss every day. And this is why social audio is something that, honestly, if I like what you mentioned, if no one is using social audio right now, you're really left behind. Basically, it's part of your personal branding, it's part of your marketing, it's part of your sales, it's part of your personal brand as well. Yes, it's part of the funnel. It's a crucial part of the funnel that people don't take it. A lot of the people don't take it seriously. Like, oh, I'm just gonna start a Twitter room, a Twitter space room, or a clubhouse. Why? It's a lot of work. No, you're creating a community, because people buy from people. People don't buy from logos or from pretty websites. People buy from us, the people who are talking to. And the fact that I can be on a Twitter space and discuss a lot of different topics with the speakers is something that brings that human connection closer, that I don't have to look up to them like, oh, this is a huge brand, or I feel inferior, or things like that. No, you're connecting with someone just like you, and they're sharing their experiences with you. And this is something that has to be tapped into, especially when it comes to marketing and personal branding.
That's brilliant. Now, let me bring in Sarah from Toronto. I specifically want to give homage to Sarah because on Monday I did a Twitter space and we had a great time. And on Tuesday she came back. So tell us what you think about social audio and Twitter spaces as it relates to the Clubhouse, and what does it mean, and where's it going?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for having me, and also for having me speak in those Twitter spaces over the last couple of days. Those were pretty long conversations. And during those conversations, I think all of us learned a great deal. We're learning from each other. So that's something I really love about it. And what I also love, and I don't want to touch too much on things that have already been discussed, but my favorite personal thing about social audio is the community aspect of it, and being able to make connections that you probably wouldn't have been able to make, and reach people that you wouldn't have been able to reach otherwise. I know even just, I've been taking part in several Twitter spaces in the last few days, especially. I'm really, really starting to get into it even more. And yes, Erica says people buy from people, absolutely. And making those connections is so important. People need to get to know you, even if they can't see you. Obviously, from what we've learned in Twitter spaces and other social audio programs too, is that connection really, really matters. When people start to associate you with things that you said in those sessions, and they will resonate with you, hopefully, or not. But I know I have picked up over 100 followers just in the last couple of days from being in various Twitter spaces.
And they're real people. That's 100 real people that's ROI in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was speaking. I was actually in a Twitter space earlier today about Web3, a long conversation about Web3, and I know we're going to talk about the metaverse shortly. But I was given a chance to speak in that one as well. And people, when they get to know you and resonate with what you're saying, they will naturally want to follow you and learn more about who you are. So it's a great way to build community, but it's also a great way to also follow other people that might be able to share value with you going forward. Yeah. I followed a whole bunch of people. I followed all of you, and we're getting to know each other and we're connecting, which is fantastic.
So look, this is a great segue. We're running StreamYard at the moment, and I love it. I love StreamYard. And the thing that's great about StreamYard is we can see each other. And we're going to talk about live streaming and virtual events in a few minutes. But Jane has mentioned that it's great to be here and to see everyone. But I want to bring Jane in to ask the question. She's tried Clubhouse and she's intrigued by Twitter Spaces. But what do you think, Jane, of 2022? Do you think social audio will take a step forward here, given that you're not really fully embedded in that? Because you have a very unique perspective. You haven't done it, so you can see forward for where it might go.
I think the social audio aspect is going to be, it'll definitely take off, because I've tried Clubhouse, which was a lot of fun, and it was great because you can build a following quite quickly. However, I like LinkedIn Live, like what you're doing now on LinkedIn, because people can see you, they can really get to know you. But the convenience of social audio is so much better. As you mentioned, you can be walking around the house doing something else while still providing a lot of value. And as you know, I'm a podcaster. I've been podcasting for 5 years now, and I have a really good following on my podcast called Your Career Podcast. But the thing with social audio is that people aren't just absorbing the information that you're providing, they can also have their comments as well. And I think being able to communicate in real time with someone that you're following or someone whose content that you enjoy, that's the gold in social audio. And so whether it's, Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces, or I'm waiting for LinkedIn, the LinkedIn audio launched, because I'll be right in there. That's exactly where I want to be. But on Twitter Spaces, because there'll be people who are watching and listening in now who might not have tried Twitter Spaces, such as myself, if you were going to get started on Twitter Spaces, I think it'd be really helpful for you to talk people through how to actually get onto it so that they can follow you, Keith.
Oh, okay. Actually, I'll do that, and I'll bring Chris in on this as well. So there's not many rules, but one of the rules is that first of all, you need to be on Twitter. Second of all, you only need 600 followers, and that's not hard to do. And if you need to know how to do that, just DM me, because I've got a system for that. So once you actually get 600 followers, you'll get a little icon, which is basically 9 circles in a little configuration. And you go on your phone, because you can only do it on your phone, and you just push that particular icon, and it'll come up with, what do you want to call your space, and do you want to do it now or schedule it? So you basically say, you know what, I want to talk about, and for you, Jane, I'm thinking 2 things you could do, and we can try this. One is how to get a job using Twitter Spaces. And so you're going to have 100 people there right away just on that topic. So there's 100 people talking to each other, and they're going, I want a job. Okay, mate, what do you want a job? What are you doing? Oh, I'm a graphic designer and I live in Bangalore and I wouldn't mind getting more work. Oh, and then suddenly someone else says, actually, amazingly, I actually am a web designer and I need a graphic designer. Can we chat? This has happened. On the call. Well, I've seen this happen. We actually did a show on Twitter Spaces about music, how to promote your music on Twitter Spaces. And several people on the call who were listening to this guitarist said, can you come and play at my event too? He got like 3 gigs that day. He got 3 invitations to speak and to sing and play at these events. So that's the first thing. Just pick a title, how to get a job using Twitter Spaces, right? You'll get 100 people straight away, right? Just there. I mean, you would. And those 100 people can come and speak and tell people what they want. And other people can come and say, look, I need you. Can we have a DM on Twitter? The reason I love Twitter Spaces specifically is that it's linked to a community of 200 million people anyway. So if I'm on a Twitter Space and I meet a person, we can DM each other during the show and after the show. Like, it's instant connections. And the second show I would run for you as an example is how to get good staff using Twitter Spaces. We'll get 100 people just right there, just with that title. And then you're going, oh, mate, the biggest trouble I get, I can't get people to turn up on time. How do we get punctuality? And then you could riff on that for 10 minutes, right? And then suddenly you're meeting all these people in the HR space, recruitment space. They're talking in real time. Like, they're actually talking to each other. and then you can DM on the side, and then suddenly you're mates, and you can meet on LinkedIn eventually, or meet in the city if you live in the same town. Does that make sense, Jane? Am I riffing there, or am I going off on a rant, or can you see the point?
I love it when you go off on a rant, Keith. It's very good. And I haven't used the word riffing, but I quite like riffing off something, which is good. I mean, definitely, because, for instance, with my podcast, on your career podcast, it's all about, how you get a job, how to have a strong resume, how to use LinkedIn, how to prepare for job interviews, all of that. And so all of those topics would very easily lend themselves to a Twitter Spaces chat, wouldn't it? Which would be very helpful. And because I haven't used Twitter Spaces before, but I have used Clubhouse, I've noticed that on Clubhouse, when you start chatting, you get so many people joining in and being able to offer, like their advice, as well as sharing their issues or problems or challenges, and being able to provide advice on the spot, regardless of where they are in the world. That is the beauty of it.
It's on the spot.
The beauty of it.
Like, as I said, what I personally really dislike is, look at that, we've got 9 people in the call now, and I'm going to put Doyle right in the center of the Brady Bunch look. So what I really dislike personally is I really dislike these boring webinars where people speak for 45 minutes and then they try and sell you something at the end. I hate those. But what you can do with social audio and live streaming, and we'll get to live streaming in a minute, is it's very engaging. We've got people on the call. We've got people making comments. We've got people on the show. And it's very in the moment, on the spot, as you said, Jane. So with that in mind, I want to bring a few more people in because we want to give everyone a turn. Rose has a really cool show on StreamYard, and she's going to be talking a lot about live streaming and virtual events. But what's your take on social audio, Rose? You're in New York. What's the vibe there about Twitter Spaces, Clubhouse, and the others? We got you on mute there. Let's unmute you. That's the quintessential live streaming problem. Still no, your mic didn't stick. There we are.
There we go. It's great to be here, and thank you, Keith, for inviting me, and great to meet everybody. I think I've followed everybody on Twitter. I am most active on Twitter, but I've increasingly been active on both Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces. And I can't say I've gotten I'm a journalist, and I've met great people, heard great conversations. I like poetry. I've heard great poetry on Clubhouse, and in Twitter Spaces, I have a hashtag that I started called Women to Follow, hashtag Women to Follow. Yeah. And I was doing written profiles of different women in different fields after the hashtag trended, and now I'm doing a live stream show. And I was thinking of who's going to be my, first guest. And I was in a Twitter space that was talking in general, I think, about travel. And I saw somebody who I'd been following for a long time. Her name is Kirsten Alana. And she lives in, I guess, California now. And I said, and I texted her, in the private chat, I said, hey, how are you? And I said, and then I thought, like, she would be a great guest to launch, because we're just all thinking about getting back to traveling. So, the connections, and, maybe I would have gone through all my contacts and found her, but, there we were in the same room, and she was in LA and I was in New York area, and, we found each other, and, so there are lots of serendipity, which is really fun, I think, about the audio, social audio.
And comparing Clubhouse to Twitter Spaces, have you noticed a big shift towards Twitter Spaces? Did you do both? Have you got some comments on for those who haven't tried either? What are your thoughts?
Well, of course, I did Clubhouse first, because Twitter Spaces wasn't here. So I think I started with Clubhouse in maybe March. And I sort of stayed away. I was kind of fun. I heard Mark Zuckerberg, talk. I mean, one of the other speakers were saying, you have this amazing access, and just kind of cool, not to have to travel somewhere and hear him speak, at a conference, but it's like you're in the same room, sort of, which is fun. And then I found, for tips about going on LinkedIn or networking. I found smaller rooms to be more helpful.
Yeah.
And and so I found like poetry rooms, and somebody in a poetry room knew me from another show that I produced and said, Rose is an amazing producer. Like, who are you? So so I think Clubhouse, there's more variety in Clubhouse because it's more established. So
Okay. Yeah.
It's
a good
easier
point.
to find a topic that you might like. And it's easier to go, Clubhouse has a hallway that you can see different. It's almost like you look in the table of contents or, an index, and you see, well, do I want to go to obits, or do I want to go, to not obits, but, do I want to hear about news? Because they have on Clubhouse, there are all these, like, somebody had told me these news, they just talk about like in 1 minute, somebody will say what news really interests them. And then that will spur a conversation. The next person does that. And there's a moderator. Whereas I find in Twitter Spaces, it's harder to see where the room is. You were talking about where to find it, and where you find it is if you're following somebody who's having a room, it'll come up with a purple circle around them.
Yeah.
But many times I'll just check and see if there's a Spaces room, and many times there isn't one going on. So unless, and I think there is a site. I know Twitter is trying to change that.
I want to pick up on that. Clubhouse is, from what I can tell, I haven't tried Clubhouse yet, but from what I can tell, Clubhouse is a more professional version. It works. It doesn't what we call rugged. There's another word for you, Jane. There's this new phrase in Twitter Spaces called "I just got rugged," and what that means is that they've ripped the rug from under your feet, and you're mid-sentence and they cut the stream off. It does actually happen to me because the technology is so new that it's sloppy, and people are just they're losing the vibe halfway through the session, and that just dies. And it's extremely annoying, but apparently Clubhouse is better at the functionality. It's much more reliable. So that's a reason to use it. It works. A bit like if you've ever tried Google Hangouts, which never, ever, ever worked for me here in Melbourne, Australia. Never was able to run a Google Hangout. But with that in mind, I just want to make sure that everyone gets a turn. I'm going to bring in a minute, Dog, from Perth. Thank you so much for calling in. But I want to talk to Sharon because she's been waiting patiently there. Sharon, tell us what you think about social audio. What do you think is going on with? Is it a trend? Have you tried it? And I'd love to hear your thoughts there from Alberta, a couple hours north of Samantha.
Hello, Keith. Thank you very much for having me here. And Samantha from Alberta. Hello. I think social audio is here to stay, and we better get a grip and just enjoy and love this whole new medium. Samantha, you used the term a podcast live. I kind of am using the word radio, comes to mind all the time. And for all of these decades that we were listening to radio interviews, live talk radio, and how many times did I want to jump in on that radio and contribute to the conversation? Because I had a real point, darn it. So yeah, exactly. The ability to contribute and participate in a conversation where you have something to say or add, or even just to comment. So, Keith, what I want to say is how important I think this is. 11 years ago, we saw advertising go online in a dramatic way around the world. And I had a legacy magazine for business in Alberta for 21 years. And in 2009, of course, the US market exploded, went away. And with that went advertising. Of course, the arrival of the bulk of advertising arrived right about that time. So newspapers went broke and broadcasting stations went broke. Magazines disappeared off the planet. And I was lucky enough to sell my magazine in 2010. But those media outlets, particularly the very large ones, were arrogant enough to say, the world is not changing. We're going to see it continue the way it always has, and we will find our way back. But those are the media outlets that found themselves in trouble and laggards and losing a lot of ground when it came time to owning more and more of the distribution rights that were available around the planet. So now that social audio is here, we're able to get off a screen, a video screen. And as everybody has said earlier, we can go about our life and do two things at once. It's possible. So that is very, very, I think that's what I'm seeing, and I think it's here to stay. That's why we created something called Virtual Communication Mastery.
Yeah.
Because our team over there is talking about, it's different working with the remote workforce, audio or video. And I think Clubhouse is wonderful. I think Twitter Spaces is going to be wonderful. But speaking to the camera, our voice and our facial features, it's a different way of
and it's a skill to learn, isn't it? It's a very. I love what you're doing there, and I want to get when we talk about virtual events and live streaming, I'll bring you back in on that. I want to just pick up on what Chris has said, and I'm just to have a little bit of fun with this. Where are you calling in from around the world? We've got people calling in from all around the world. Where are you in the world? Just let us know where you live, and more importantly, what site you want to see the next comments on, and what type of device. But the other thing I want to bring in is I want to bring in my mate Dor from Perth. He's currently in Perth, but he's from Calgary, so he's rocking there with the whole Alberta vibe. So you're sort of stuck in the middle there between, is that right? Or is Calgary right down the bottom of Alberta, and you've got Edmonton and Lethbridge there as well?
It's Edmonton, Calgary, Lethbridge.
Okay.
From north to south, yeah.
Well, there we are. We've got the whole gang here. So, I mean, thanks so much. We haven't chatted for a while, but what are you thinking about social audio? Have you tried Twitter Spaces, or have you been using Clubhouse, or a bit of both?
Honestly, I haven't tried Twitter Spaces yet. It's actually, it finally comes up on my phone on Twitter where you're actually looking at the current posts, and it has like the blue dot, and you can start like a Twitter Space right away. So I haven't actually tried it yet. That's only been there for me for like a couple of weeks. So, but I mean, yeah, you and I have talked a lot about the audio version of live streaming and that sort of thing. And I think there's really a lot of traction that people are getting with it, both on Clubhouse and obviously on the other channels, Spotify now, and a few others as well. And to me, it's all about the environment. And I think, Sharon, you said it earlier, that it's really sort of, you don't have to worry. You can come as you are, basically, and talk. And it's like talk radio, and you don't have to worry. You don't have to put on your makeup or, comb your hair or whatever. As long as you're having a good conversation, that's fundamentally what this is all about. So I think that there's going to be a lot of, not necessarily a huge switch over, because live streaming obviously has that capability as well, but audio gives you that sense of just having a conversation. It's a lot more, it's like maybe it's a generational thing, where you picked up the phone and you called somebody and you talked to somebody for a relatively long time or short time or whatever, but it gives you that opportunity to have a conversation that you wouldn't necessarily have on live streaming. And we've even experimented with, well, let's just turn off the video and have an audio conversation on StreamYard or Restream. Yeah.
I want to pick up on that, mate, because you introduced me to Run the World, which I actually think is possibly the coolest site I've ever seen. And on the Run the World format, which I've tried to play around with, we actually turn our cameras off, and it looks a little bit like Twitter Spaces. So for those people that don't want to do video, Run the World, which is an event platform, and we'll get to events in a few minutes. It's a really lovely site that's quite affordable and quite functioning, and plus it has that really cool feature where you can turn your camera off, and it looks like Clubhouse. Gia has some comments about some gosh she's hearing about Facebook. That might be interesting to pick up on. What are you thinking there, Gia? Facebook starting to play with this?
Yes, actually. I saw it a couple of days ago. It might be last week, where a couple of accounts, like when you go up on your Facebook app and you see on top, and then a couple of accounts, big accounts, celebrity accounts, they pinned two events for a social audio event, and it didn't look like a social audio event. It literally looked like, I don't think they did this right, but it looked like someone pinned an event on top.
And it wasn't clear what it was until I clicked in and it says listen in. And that's when I found out it was a scheduled social audio event. So then I went on and dug deeper into my accounts, and I was my clients' accounts, and I asked everyone around, and apparently not everyone has this feature yet. So this just shows that if Facebook started testing with this in a couple of accounts, this will explode. This will definitely explode. So in my opinion, if Twitter doesn't catch up quick, Facebook and Instagram are going to start over. But honestly, so this is because it's going to take over in Facebook and Instagram, because people don't have to, like Clubhouse, I don't have to leave Clubhouse to go check someone else's social media. This is why I love Twitter Spaces, because in Twitter Space I can just check. It's like a live feed. I can see what they're posting. I can see what they're talking about.
You can DM them.
Share. Exactly. But for Clubhouse, I had to leave the platform to go check what they're talking and then come back and in and out. And honestly, when you're busy and you're just trying to listen in and contribute to the conversation, we don't really do that. You just leave it on play and you just listen in or talk. So if Facebook takes over, this will be a defining moment for Twitter. Basically, they have to catch.
Well, what do you think they need to do? They need to get the tech right. They need to get, this phrase "rugged," which actually is a phrase now. Yeah. I got rugged. Someone ripped a rug out from under my feet, and halfway through a stream, halfway through a sentence, we lost everything. Now, I'm only going to tolerate that a couple of times. I'm only going to accept that a couple of times before I just find something else that'll work. Yeah. I'm prepared to run with it because it's new, but if it keeps happening, I'll just find another platform. So that's the first thing. They've just got to get the tech better.
Yeah, because I remember I was in one of your spaces and I was the speaker, and I got a couple of calls while I was on the space, and it took me off the speaking stage and put me back as a listener. Yeah. So every time I had to request the mic or wait for you to bring me up again, and it happened a couple of times. And it was kind of frustrating. So imagine if I had a guest speaker, like someone, a VIP speaker,
and the phone rings.
Yes, and the phone rings, and then I'm off, and I'm gone or something. So that was kind of worrying. So I was glad that was just a casual Twitter space, but this is something to consider as well. So I think our duty here as marketers and people with influence in our social media is that we need to raise awareness on this, because when I'm speaking to my clients or to my friends, here, come join this Twitter space, I think you'll really benefit from this. They're like, oh no, do I have to create an account? Do I have to do this? What is it? And I felt like there isn't much awareness. It's just kind of this tech that we just all jumped in and we just went with it. There were no, there was nothing okay, this is how you can use Twitter Space, for example, into your funnel, into your marketing, to utilize it for different topics. So it's a lot of work, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, look, I want to pick up on what we're doing here. I'm going to bring Chris in on, and then I might wrap up the social audio component. What's happening here is that we're talking on a video format, and there's a little bit of a load there. I've got to have a mic, I've got to have a webcam, I've got to have a light, I've got to have a shave. And while other people are speaking, everyone else is sort of thinking, well, then, okay, no worries. I'm just sitting here, and when am I going to get my turn? Whereas with social audio, there's none of that. I could be making a sandwich, I could be making a cup of tea, I could put a load of washing on, I could hang a load of washing out, I could do things, I could check the letterbox. So when my turn comes up, I'm ready because the phone's just in my pocket. So with social audio, and I might let Chris actually, do you want to do a screenshot while we got the 9 up? Let's this is session 1, the social audio component. Let's do a couple of screenshots and maximize the marketing there. If you want to do that and send it to me. With Run the World, there's a particular button for this, which we'll do some events about this in a minute. But I might finish this session with Chris, because he started the session on social audio. Tell us what you're thinking about social audio, and you did say that you had a couple of comments to make, and then we'll move into the virtual events and live streaming section, and people can go or come in later.
I think it's important to talk about, you had a question on your bullet points, which was, why is Twitter Spaces leading the charge now? So, if we're doing a little bit of forward thinking, I think that Twitter Spaces has been a pretty solid number 2 in the social audio scene, and the Clubhouse arguably is number 1. But they were able to capitalize with their early success and build up a platform of over 10 million plus weekly users. What we've seen, though, is both Twitter and Clubhouse introducing new features over the past 6 to 9 months. But in my eyes, Twitter has a distinct advantage of over 200 million plus daily users, with more brands and existing networks already established on Twitter than in any other current social media platform. The comparison of these two different platforms is almost mirror-like, with only slight differences between the two platforms, other than one key ingredient, which is potential. Twitter has long established its position as the home for brands, news, marketing. Almost all other social audio platforms have Twitter accounts and actively engage within the Twitterverse. Yes. Let that sink in for a minute, right? So when Twitter Spaces rolls out room discovery, creator programs, and replay and recording options that we believe are on the current roadmap, we have no doubt that Twitter will be the market leader. But I mean, that's my impression anyway.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Chris. If they get the tech right, if they work on getting some of the tech right, and so that we don't get kicked out all the time, and we move things along, we will win. You know, I don't work for Twitter, but you know, Twitter will win. I'm a little bit sort of Twitter centric, so as you know, I'm pretty much pushing for them. But if they can get the tech right. You've got 200 million users on Twitter already, just sitting there waiting for things to do, right? We're not just sitting around waiting for things to do, of course, but you know, we're always looking for new ideas. And if you're already on Twitter, I can DM you right now and say, "Hey, Kiki, come in." Kiki's in New York, so she's been on several of my live streams and several of my Twitter Spaces, and so I can say to Kiki right now, "Here's the link." In fact, I will do that in a minute. Here's the link. Why don't you come in and chat to me about this? And so Twitter Spaces, I think, will win that race. But I think it's a very good time to do a little bit of a pattern interrupt and allow people who need to go and are too polite to tell me to go and do their things, make a sandwich, for instance, or put on a load of washing. So I'm going to do a little bit of a pattern interrupt here. If you need to go, please feel free. And then we're going to move into the next section with some slightly fresh guests. We're going to talk about virtual events and live streaming. Okay, so here we are. Virtual events and live streaming. Let me just move that, hide that comment. So we've talked a lot about the idea of social audio. This is the first tier of the massive shift that's going to happen in 2022. A lot of us are doing live streaming now or watching live streams, but they're a lot of work. You've got to have a mic, you've got to have a webcam, you've got to have a light, you've got to have a pretty background, you've got to have a shave, you've got to do your hair, you've got to put on makeup. I don't wear makeup, but Doyle and I have been riffing about whether that's a thing for guys, right? I saw a post on that once. Should I wear makeup? Should we do the Channel 7 thing and have a production team making me look good in front of the camera? There's a lot of work that goes into live streams, and they look great, and we get a replay and we love them. And so social audio is really filling that gap for people that don't want to do that. But what if you do want to do it? And so let's really play out here on this. I might start with Rose here because she has a producer. And actually, I think Rose has left the building, so I'm going to come back to that idea. But let me just start with maybe Sharon, who is doing a series of live streams on various sites, mainly Zoom. So based on what we're seeing here, Sharon, what are you noticing about the idea of live streaming and virtual events? It's definitely a big thing. You've created a product, a whole ethos around it. Tell us what you're doing there, and how do you think you'll see it playing out?
Well, thanks again, Keith. So the whole idea about virtual universe, the virtual universe, the social audio universe that we're talking about, and the remote workforce. This is where we have moved in a very hard and harsh way, as we all know, over the last 2 years. So we're saying the virtual world is here to stay, that the remote world is here to, the remote workforce is here to stay, that flexibility is being required and requested by employees. There's something called the Great Resignation that is happening because they want to work from home as much as they want to work in the office. And Keith, you and I have talked about this earlier. Your wife loves to go into the office. By the same token, there are many other people who love to work from home. So there's an entire new choice that is being made available to employees around the world.
Yeah.
And we now have to think about how is there something new to learn when it comes time to working in virtual communities, whether from home or in the office. And we see that there's quite a bit of history and quite a bit of research around working from home and the remote workforce. It's gone back 20 years. But just now, over the last 2 years, it's really hit the stage that everybody is faced with, how do we do this better? Again, I'll come back to the whole idea about voice, face, facial connections. And those people who love to be in a video room, they do get to see faces smiling at them. And that's just about as good as being in person, but it's not quite. And so how do I know that you were agreeing with me really in this conversation? Yeah. Or that you are turning off your screen and falling asleep? How do I know, and how can I trust that you are actually providing or working on your work at home? There's a great divide between what the executive people are saying, the C-suite are saying, and where the remote workforce is saying. So only 9% of decision makers really believe that the remote workforce is something that they should contend with.
Are you sure? Are you saying 9% of the C-suite thinks that remote work is a thing?
I should really couch that better, I think, Keith, in that we did a poll with Des Blanchfield last week.
Yeah.
Got 6,800 returns and votes on Twitter. It was a Twitter poll. And on that poll, granted, Twitter brings and delivers a certain type of audience. But in that poll of over 6,800 votes, 9% of the population said that they didn't trust communication.
Wow.
And then I think 69% said, 69% said they really believed that they needed to spend time communicating better. But we have this great divide, and we have the need to, I think, for some serious training.
Yeah, and you're creating a really cool product with this. This is a really important subject. My wife loves working in the city and almost refuses to work at home. I haven't worked in the city since 2006, and there's no way I'm going back. There's no way. Mm-hmm. Doyle is on the call. He knows lots and lots about virtual events. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Live streaming is a sort of a middle ground where we're chatting and we're just sort of sending our stuff to Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitch. But, there's three major ideas here. One is live streaming, which is the natural extension of Twitter Spaces. Because you can see me. You've come to my Twitter Spaces and now you get to see me. I still have the same accent, but you get to see what I look like. The second tier, and this is where I think we'll start, is that there's a whole series of sites that have picked up on this virtual event phenomenon. And we've tried many of them, and they are great. You don't have to travel. There's a lot less cost. You get massive ROI because you can get people's details while you're there. You don't have to worry about a business card in a shoebox and going through them and emailing them later. But you miss out on the hugging and the real-time events and the real-time networking. But it's a big subject. I want to bring everyone in on the room on this. I know, Rose, you've got a lot to say about this. You've got a live streaming show. You do virtual events. Tell me about what your take is on the virtual world compared to what we were doing in 2018. And we got you there on mute again. Oh, I've got to get better at getting you off there from here.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Great to be here, an honor to be here, and a pleasure. I've been part of a group that is a startup called DigiMentors, and we have, since the pandemic, been bringing many in-person events online. And so what's interesting to hear is from the clients is, let's say we do, I've been involved in doing virtual events for University of Rhode Island, has a journalism school, and they do a lecture series. And what they say is that instead of getting 200 or 300 in a room to hear Nick Kristof and Cheryl Dunn, this way they're not only getting alumni from University of Rhode Island, but they're reaching thousands. Yeah. So, and there's a show here in the States called Stars in the House that was started by Seth Rudetsky, who's like kind of Mr. Broadway. He's a musician, but he's been bringing all the Broadway stars to people's living rooms, and they've raised $1 million for Actors Equity. Yeah. So the reach in virtual events is tremendous. Personally, I think that some of the friends I have on social media are people that I've met in person, but I have met people, that I, through Twitter and other platforms that I feel if I went to a city where they are, I would look them up.
Yeah. Yep.
In my experience is that I was part of a show where we did 250 straight days of live stream shows using StreamYard with one host and 2 producers on some aspect of COVID. And, so the first week we were starting, which was March 13th, the COVID was worse in Italy. So, we knew people in Italy, and we got some Italian doctors and some journalists to talk about what was happening in Italy, then. And then on other shows, we would interview nurses here, but also I interviewed Jackie Hoffman, who's an actress who appeared in Fiddler, and another actress who was in a big TV series here, about what they were doing. And, we even had, you could get on with a phone, and we had contacted an ex-prisoner who said he was being, unfairly had been held for 30 years. And he joined us by phone. And, and then all kinds of tech difficulties where, people would, we lose them, and then I would call them on their cell and just hold up the cell phone with their face.
And the possibilities there are endless, and I really, really want to run the room on this idea. So there's a couple of things going on here. One is I want to bring Doyle in to talk about we did a whole 15-part series. When we knew in March 2020 that we were going to go into lockdown, who knew what was going to happen? But we knew that we were going to lockdown for 2 weeks in March 2020. And then it turned into 4 weeks and 6 weeks and 120 days, etc. Doyle and I started running a show called Livestreaming Decoded, and we pulled apart every single site that was available at that time. So, mate, can you just decode on what we did there, but also how has it affected the virtual world? Because you've actually done a lot of work in the virtual event space. What are you finding, and is there more uptake now? Are you doing more events since we chatted last?
Yeah, well, I guess there's a distinction between live streaming and virtual events. What I've seen in sort of the whole environment side of things is that virtual events are more sort of bigger, bringing people together for a single purpose type thing, whereas live streaming is very let's go out and do it, let's cut and paste, let's just run a show and that sort of thing. So it really depends on who your audience is, and that's where you'd have to decide who is my audience. Do they want audio, do they want live streaming, or do they want events, or do they want a combination of sort of all those three as well? And it was really cool when we went through and tested these types of platforms to see kind of what were people looking for, what were the strategies that you can actually integrate it into business as well. which is really critical, because at the end of the day, like it does become about, are you generating business from this or not? And if you're not, then you know what, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily wrong. It's that you might have to tweak how you're delivering it, and how you're creating that experience as well. So there's a lot of tech out there. You know, take your pick. Don't waste a lot of time in terms of deciding, okay, well, should I use this or that? Just pick one. You know what? Look at them and see which ones would be most effective for you. But pick one, go for it. You know, do you want to put together an event? Do you want to put together more of a live stream like this, or go into the social audio side of things as well?
That's great. Why don't we bring in Erica there, because Erica and I, and we've chatted, Doyle, with Erica about the idea of these virtual events. You're running big ones. And so, Erica, tell us about what you're using. I think you're using AirMeet, and we collectively have had the experience of running an event and it not working. I want to share a little story about that. We ran an event on Hopin, which now owns StreamYard, Hopin.2, which had great promise. And we had the big rah-rah speech with the guys, and we signed them up, and it didn't work. Did it, Erica? So we can start there, but you're now using AirMeet, and it does work, doesn't it? I think we've got you on mute there. Let me just take you off mute.
Hey, Doyle. Big shout out to Doyle there. Thank you so much, my friend. So we're just getting warmed up with AirMeet, and I've test drive it a few times, because Keith, we're still preparing for this mega event that we really want to go. Yeah. So we kind of just test driving it before we go very large. So I've been test driving it with a few projects, and it's been going well. It's a very solid platform, and it allows you to be able to do like small meetups to large conferences like the ones that we are planning. We're actually planning one right now, which we will be doing come October 8th. So we're going to be using aspects of that. And we also have another platform which mirrors Twitter Spaces, which is called LeaderPass. So it will allow us to just do chat, and you get to listen in and view the presentation. And then after that, for the interaction. So now we're merging the two platforms. Yeah. So now you have the two spaces, and then you have the another space where you can break out into have the more one-on-one interaction with the speed networking on AirMeet. You get to go visit you give value to your sponsors by setting up your booth spaces so they get one-on-one chats. Depending on what you want to do.
You're talking about big events.
So depending on what
now we're talking about a totally different idea.
Exactly.
So hold that thought. I want to bring Chris in on the idea of merging the social audio component with the virtual event. You mentioned a thing called LeaderPass. I think in my travels I've heard this. Chris, have you heard of it? Do you know much about it?
I haven't heard much about LeaderPass. No, unfortunately.
Okay.
Oh, well, Chris, I wanted to check it out.
What do you think? What is it, Erica? Is it a version of Twitter Spaces for events? Is it a bit of a?
So it is an event. It's an event platform, but it does not. It doesn't allow you to see each other. It just has the chat feature built in there, and then it also they're recently doing some upgrades. So now you're able to give your sponsors some visibility in there too. So up to 5 of your main sponsors, you get to have them in there. You have a breakout that takes you directly to your session, but you actually get to have your account set up where you can go and view the conference live, and also you can engage in chat and network right there in the chat features. So you're just hearing the presentation, you get to see what's happening. So it actually feeds into that. But you unlike like an AirMeet, where you can go, can bring people on stage, it doesn't allow for that part of the system. But it's a great, but really solid platform, really solid.
I'm really excited about this, Erica, because I love Run the World. We've tried.
It's
part of my brand. I love Run the World. I think it's the best one. But you've tried AirMeet. You love it. I personally, and this is halfway into the call, so they're not going to see it. I personally wouldn't recommend Hopin. We've tried it. It didn't work for us. But by all means, have a go at Hopin.2. It's a lovely platform and it has great promise. just didn't work for us. But I actually want to bring in Sarah here because she loves real events, and I'd love to know if you're exploring the idea of virtual events and whether or not that's something that we can talk about by comparison.
Definitely, yeah, I do love in-person events a lot. I'm a networking addict, as I mentioned before. However, I do definitely see I see pros and cons in both, and I think that they are two different ways of connecting, obviously, but both of those two ways of connecting are valuable in different ways. So for virtual events, I think a lot of the benefits are clear. I mean, especially now that we have all been doing more meeting up virtually over the past year and a half already. There's more accessibility. People can show up at their convenience, and it's easier than hopping on a plane and going across the country and spending thousands of dollars on plane and hotel and all of those things. It's more it's a lot less cost prohibitive in a lot of ways. It is I think, though, what did I want to mention? I wanted to just include too that I think from what I've seen, it's more interactive, especially with the social audio, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You're not just passively taking in the content. You're actually getting an opportunity to participate in it live as it's happening, which is also great. And I think that can happen with live events. But when you go to a conference and someone is up on the stage and giving their speech, you don't get a chance to ask questions until maybe afterwards, or you bump into them in the conference area afterwards, kind of thing.
It's more personalized, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, I really think it is. I feel like it is. I've really enjoyed my experiences with the social audio already. And, one of the cons, though, I think, is I know we've all heard about people getting Zoom fatigue over the last.
Zoom fatigue, yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I'm just going to run the room. We've got two potential guests. Actually, you can only have 10 people in the call at one time. So I'm going to just run the room and give everyone a chance to talk. And then if it feels natural for you to, go and make a meal or look after your family, then I'd love to sort of refresh the room. But I really want to bring in Chris here because a couple of things. What I think is going to happen is that there's going to be this bolt-on idea. Erica mentioned Leader Pass. I hadn't heard of that, but we have been doing a lot of work or a lot of research on two particular sites. One is one called Angle, A-N-G-L-E, Angle Audio. What they do, it's very cool. What they actually do is they actually make the audio for you for your event. They don't offer this as a service for their own community. They tried it, but they couldn't compete. What they've done very uniquely is they've actually created a site that can be replicated for any event, it's large or small. And they're offering that as a service. Sounds like that's a little bit similar to Leader Pass. So can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like, Chris, and how that might benefit a sort of a virtual event or a live streaming vibe?
We talked about this before, but my thought with Angle, when they originally released as an audio app where you can do recordings, and then what happens is they decided to create something which is a software as a service. Just imagine like South by Southwest or a PAX East, a gaming convention, being able to inject a social audio platform on the spot. So while attendees are at an event for like a 3 or 4 day conference, for example, you've now created this entire new animal that they can be brought up on the fly. And I mean, I think it's a genius idea. And like I said, there's so many of these different social audio apps. We have over 60 of them, arguably. I've heard as many as 200. So, with that many different types of things, we started to categorize them and figure out which ones do what. And what I found was there's actually a lot of them that are bolt-on, like you were saying, such as High Fidelity, which is now working with Clubhouse for spatial audio, as well as Angle, which has decided to get rid of their social site and turn it into a service. So we've tried to reach out to them and try to get a feel for, real use cases. But I mean, I think it's a brilliant idea, actually.
Yeah, well, what it does is it picks up on, rather than trying to compete with the 60 and possibly even 200 different sites, Angle is one of the only sites that says, look, we'll do it for you. You've got an event in the city, you've got something going on, you South by Southwest or social media marketing world. You don't have time and the money to be bothered with building this yourself. We'll do it for a fee, whatever the fee is. And High Fidelity, which is a spatial audio app, and I want to talk about this in a minute. Spatial audio is the idea that instead of everyone talking at you on a flat plane, spatial audio tries to replicate the space of a real event. So if you're sitting on someone's left, then left. Then if you're sitting on someone's left, actually that works because I'm in reverse. If you're sitting on someone's left, then this ear will be more active. If you're sitting on someone's right, then that ear will be more active. If they're behind you, I don't know how they do this, but they actually replicate real world tech. Can you explain how that works, Chris?
Well, and just think about it, the number of people in the room, right? So if you go into a room and there's 3 people, one will be on your far left, one will be on your far right, and one will be center. But as you move your face towards any one of those particular speakers, it would center the audio. So it would come in like stereo. Whereas the person on your far right would literally sound like they're positioned in a room virtually to your right. So the idea is with the spatial audio, it just makes it like a more natural conversation instead of everybody living in your head.
Yeah. I want to bring Rose in. I do need to refresh the room to allow a few more guests in, but Rose has got some ideas before we sort of move on. Rose, have you tried these new pieces of tech, and what are your last thoughts on this idea of virtual events and live streaming and all these new tech challenges and advantages that we have?
Well, I don't know the names of everything you're using, but I have been involved in making these happen. And there was one event where it was virtual, but at the end there was a cocktail room, and you sort of moved your mouse, to talk to somebody in the cocktail room. And I did meet some new people, and kept in touch with them. And one turned out to be one of my guests for Women to Follow, who's on Clubhouse a lot, all the time, but I tune in. I do think, definitely, I think live stream, virtual events will be here to stay. I mean, imagine if you're a small business and how much you might spend to send your 2 salespeople out to Las Vegas in a year. Why would you keep doing that if you can do it virtually? So I don't think it's it's not going away, and there'll be better and more applications to make it all run better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Samantha is patiently waiting in the wings. She's got a busy life there in Lethbridge, Alberta. She's got a farm to run. She's got a family to look after, and she's graciously agreed to come in at her time to tell us what you're thinking about this. You for instance, had run a TED Talk or were planned to do a TED Talk, and then it failed. But my gut feeling is you've probably got stuff much better in the wings as a result of this, right? And again, we've got you on mute. I'll just do that from here. Yeah.
Just getting used to this platform. All the mutes are in different spots depending on which platform you're in. Because all of us tech savvy experts are having trouble with the mute button. It's at the bottom of the screen. Yeah, I landed a TED Talk, did an audition, everything else was actually set for last Saturday. I actually had to do a little grieving session on Saturday. I was supposed to be doing a TED Talk, and I spent months preparing. I wasn't finished. It's a solid 18 minutes, and it's your time to that launches many careers off. So it's very important. And I said no to lots of income opportunities because I was putting my eggs in that basket. I wanted to get my TED Talk good. And then all of a sudden I get a message saying, due to the new COVID waves, we didn't plan to do a virtual event as well. It was only a live event. And so we've canceled the event, and we're not sure if we're ever going to run this one. Good luck, you. And the lady said, you blew our minds. We really hope you get another one. And I was like, wow.
And they'll come back again.
Oh my gosh, I lost
arguably, this is better. I mean, I would argue this is better. TED Talks are great. You get 18 minutes. It goes on YouTube. It goes viral, possibly goes viral. But, you know,
how is this better than that, Keith?
Well, okay, let's riff on this. Let's riff on this. I'm going to actually bring Jane in to actually ask, do you think that this format could replace the idea of a TED Talk, or do you think that the branding possibilities, Jane, of a TED Talk just are unstoppable and unbeatable? I mean, am I on the money there? I think this is better.
Being virtual is better. I think, I mean, the buzz of being at a TED Talk and actually seeing the speakers on the stage is absolutely amazing. So Samantha, I hope you get a chance to do it live. Oh, I feel your pain. However, the thing is if you have something virtual, it makes it accessible to so many more people. But you know, you can't replicate a live event, you know, that buzz, the feeling of being shoulder to shoulder with so many people and actually seeing something live. It's like, you know, I love going to see live shows because it's live, but you still get a good feeling when you're watching something virtually, but it needs to be a really good platform. The live streams, I think, are fine. Like this is good, but having presented at a convention which was delivered via VFairs, which maybe is similar to Run the World. I don't know Run the World, but I want to try it. But VFairs was amazing because you feel as though you're being zoomed in virtually. I mean, it feels like you're there. It's really three-dimensional into a conference. And then, of course, there are all the different networking rooms and the exhibition booths. And it's kind of like a hybrid of, you know, Zoom mini meeting rooms together with a great auditorium. And they had it in such a way that it felt like you were actually sitting in an auditorium and you were looking at the backs of heads of people, and the backs of the heads were moving, even though it was all virtual. So that would make it feel like more of a live TED Talk, I would imagine.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my concern is the energy. Like you can do a virtual event, but you know, you feed off the energy and you adjust, right? It's very, I mean, you can sort of, as long as you're seeing people's faces, you can adjust. But that was my concern about moving to a virtual. Now, I was also supposed to do a keynote this October for the University of Lethbridge as an alumni for the Management Student Society. And they canceled that too. So it's supposed to be going again in March. And I think they're going to try to, I'm not sure if they're going to try to have a virtual option, because these cancel. And all these speakers, I feel for them. You put a lot of time and energy and say no to lots of things to say yes. And then just to have them all launch. But anyway, I'd love to see the on-site, you know, like lots like how a wedding would be or a funeral. I mean, we're doing it. They're live events and then they're live streamed. So can that be done? But then also it's, I know I guess it's a whole other team, but it's like, it'd be like that, but then just having an actual side of a whole community going on the side. I mean, we do these auctions. I'm married to a farmer and they'll have like worldwide auctions. So there's people at the auction and then there's people bidding and then, you know, people representing the ones who are bidding. So you could potentially have some sort of hybrid that combos them. So if you do have a cancellation, you could still have the speakers come live, or you can switch to a virtual event very quickly because you've already pre-sold those tickets on a virtual world. So
can I ask you, Samantha, what were you most disappointed about with the what were you most disappointed about? When were you really
come on, Keith.
No, okay. I mean, let's drill down into why. Because were you really disappointed because you didn't get to speak in a room full of people, or are you really disappointed because you didn't get your YouTube video, or are you really disappointed because that video didn't go viral? I mean, all three, but which one's the pain point?
Oh, you know, honestly, I'm not aiming to necessarily be famous. I'm a multi-achiever and I'm all about like living my best life, doing as much as I can. I think honestly, I mean, it's just a dream. It would have been a dream come true. And it was just like that dream didn't come true. And I think it wasn't about having viral or anything like that. Because I think if you get stuck in that, you're not going to do a good job. I really just wanted to complete it. I really wanted to rock it. And I really wanted to say, I did my best and I did well. Yeah, I didn't get an opportunity to say, to follow it through and finish it. And also my son was getting married and it was crazy, and I gave up opportunities to be with some of my family and things like that to get ready for the TED Talk. So I gave up on important milestones in my life to concentrate on the TED Talk. So I was disappointed that I'll never get that time back either.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And if I might add to that point, the last point that she mentioned is that as a speaker, all of these sacrifices she had to go through, when TED Talks as an organization comes again, asking these speakers, you don't trust them anymore because they're not ready. They're not ready to face these challenges. So like now we're put in a place where like, okay, what if this happens? Are you going to cancel my event again? Is this going to happen? What am I supposed to do? So this is very important from both sides of the equation that people should look into.
I can speak to that specifically. I tell you, I invite a lot of people to, and I said this to Samantha, I run my events like the airlines run their business. People don't turn up, and I can't stand running an event, promoting it, and then having, say, 2 speakers and they both cancel on the same day. And it has happened. I'm stuck there talking to the camera by myself. So I overbook. And so much so that Philip had a bit of trouble getting in, and I apologise for that, Philip, because we've got 10 speakers. So what I might do here is I might do another one of those pattern interrupts, and I'll give people a chance if they want to, because they're finished. I might actually give people a chance to leave the room and do their thing. But before I do that, I just want to give Sharon a chance to talk about something she is very passionate about. She's got a really cool guide here. Sharon, do you want to talk about how you're doing that, and what's in it, and what do people get for this free guide about how to run virtual conferences? We got you on mute there. Actually, we still got you on mute. We got you on mute.
Yep.
There we are.
Okay, thanks, Keith. We wrote this e-guide 1 year ago now. And we wrote this guide again to address the whole question about the first question at that time a year ago was, how do we get involved with virtual conferences when we're in the middle of a pandemic? So we brought together a team of writers, beginning with Dr. Jeremy Lukabaugh, who I believe is still on the call here today. Jeremy is an industrial psychologist, and he talks about the FBI negotiation techniques and difficult conversations and how that can be applied to the virtual environment. And then we also brought in Tom Bradshaw, who is Tom the Speech Guy Bradshaw, and he has got reams of academic skills and coaching skills behind him in terms of how to speak again publicly, in public. And then we have Trip Braden, who is an executive coach, and then myself, who in digital marketing is where I would specialize. So we put together all of our research, information, guidelines for the categories, for the speakers that would be looking to speak in a virtual way. We spoke to the actual conference event organizers themselves, who would have to train now in this new environment. The third component would be the sponsors and the partners and what they could get out of participating, what they should be looking in terms of expectations for sponsoring now a virtual event instead of an in-person event. And then finally, the delegates themselves, people who were going to attend those conferences. And at that time, people are still getting used to attending an event and not really taking advantage, of course, of their Twitter equity and their Twitter presence at a conference. So we compiled that whole thing together under one roof, and we wrote this e-guide for everybody to take away. Based on that e-guide, we also created a course, a self-learning e-course as well. So the whole package together is what we did for the virtual world.
Well, and we'll bring you back again to talk about that. Rose, you've got some ideas as to what people might be able to do in this environment just to improve things, yeah?
Yeah, I think that the one thing that's really important, and I've been in some virtual things, that you can't expect people to sit in a virtual conference as long as they do in an in-person event, because one, when you're in an in-person event, you can chat with your person next to you, but when you have to, when there's no human contact next to you, with you, when there's no human contact, I think you have to be mindful and keep the speeches shorter. And so there has to be a moderator. Also, I think it's important to be leading the discussion so that if one speaker is, veering off in a tangent, they bring it back if it's a panel discussion like this.
Yeah. And I think actually picking up on that, this is the exact reason why I love social audio. Like, to think that I could run a room on my own for 4 hours is incomprehensible to me. But because I'm doing other things like making a sandwich or a cup of tea, or, I'm just checking the mail, or I'm making the bed, or I'm putting a load of washing on, or I'm not talking to other people. Like I can't multi-skill in that way. But it's exactly what you're saying, Rose. You can't expect people to sit on a chair and look at a screen for 4 hours. But people have been on our live streams for hours and hours at a time. And it's really astonishing to me that this has happened. I still can't believe it myself. But with that in mind, I want to bring Philip in because he's been on several of our Twitter spaces. And this would be an incredibly interesting idea for you to talk about the Twitter spaces we've done and the work you're doing and how it relates to this mini conference we're doing here. And where do you think it's all going? Just pick up where you are. And we've got you on mute there. I'll just take you off mute. We got you. We got you now.
All right. I'm still figuring out. Oh, there we go. Thanks, Keith. Good evening from Michigan. My name is Philip Ogola from Nairobi, Kenya. With the social audio, I think social audio has given virtual events more depth, where people can actually go to sites, back channels, and people can actually discuss, which never happens in the real like live setup events, where probably you don't have access to a speaker or getting to them may be tricky. And I'll give an example of the UN Assembly. This UN Assembly was usually a virtual event where the only speakers were probably the presidents and top.
Very good. Very good analogy.
Yep. So you find that in the previous UN assemblies where you could attend, it was easy to meet the president, get to interact with them, but this time around it was not easy. So there's also a challenge where live event doesn't give you that one-on-one physical meeting with people of concern. Especially like people from Africa, when you go to a live event which is global, those physical meetups actually really help a lot, where you get to interact with people as opposed to virtual events.
Okay, and look, I'm really appreciative of your time because you've experienced what I think you called charity burnout. This idea that you have given so much to so many people that you hit the wall, right? And this is why virtual events can sometimes be a little bit of a break, even though we do have what we call Zoom fatigue. The idea of being able to go on a call and just sort of chill and sit in the background, you're still achieving a great deal, but you don't have the physical load. And I'd be really interested to know the difference between when you've done work on a virtual stage compared to having to fly to a country that might be several hours away and be involved and be there. And it must be a much more draining experience, yeah?
I'd say no. Being a humanitarian on the front line, we really bank on the physical appearance of people. If probably I'm assisting you, I need to look at your eyes, I need to look at your emotions, and you don't get that on the virtual space. So as humanitarians, especially now for me, it's been a game changer where I'm used to being on the ground. I'm used to being fast responder with my boots on the ground, but this time around I'm doing stuff virtually, where and this is something which Samantha can attest to, where I get burnouts because of screen time. I get because of the screen time. So I find physical events quite therapeutic, where you get to meet people, you get to talk to people, you get to move out of the house, because I can't be on the screen for more than an hour. I have to
The Zoom fatigue is real, isn't it? It's a real thing.
It is.
I want to bring in Kiki. This is actually a really cool example of something a little bit impromptu. Kiki has been on my Twitter Spaces pretty much every time, and as a favour to her, I've let her come in. She wasn't scheduled to speak, but we can make fun with this one. So tell us what you're doing there, Kiki, and now that we've seen it, now that you've been on the Twitter Spaces, and we're now talking about live streaming and virtual events, how do they differ, and what do you think the real power is here moving forward to 2022? Oh, we got you on mute.
Yeah. So we have spoken about this many times. I do think that there is a lot of power in audio, because now many people are actually returning to work. Some are not. There is a massive exodus, at least with New York City teachers and staff. As of Friday, many people are going to be leaving the sector because they do not want to be vaccinated. However, for those who are staying in, they're driving to work and they may be driving a longer distance. So audio is something that you can hear as you drive, and you don't have to look at someone, and you don't have to pay attention to what is happening. So it's very flexible, and people appreciate it, unless it's an actual instructional situation where you need to be seeing things. Because as a teacher, I do a lot of webinars and trainings, and I'm also a mentor, a model teacher. I present for Apple and GEGS and Microsoft After Hours and trainings all over the world. So we do a different kind. We use Zoom, we use Google Meet, we use Teams. So we need to see what is happening, because that's how we train. However, for if you want to listen to people, and if you want to get people from all over the world, and you want to get singers or motivating speakers, that is the place to do it. And many people choose to go on Twitter Spaces to do that. Now you're using LinkedIn, you're using StreamYard. First time I'm here. So thank you for the invite, and I'm glad I got to be part of this. I was just actually presenting for Nearpod today. That's why I'm wearing my shirt.
Yeah.
I'm a Nearpod pioneer, so I haven't even had time to change, because we had an event today, and I was helping with onboarding some new members. So I'm not working for the company. However, I have been working with the company for many years.
Yeah.
So I'm very involved in many things.
Oh, you're very welcome to join, and I love Twitter Spaces. I think for me, Twitter Spaces is going to be my go-to platform, because it's just so much easier to do. But we do get to see people here, and the problem with StreamYard, as everyone has experienced, I've got to send you the link, I've got to send you the questions, and that can get a bit troublesome, and it has been a little bit difficult to organise. But what I might do here, given that we're coming up to 11:30 here, and I did promise to change the vibe, I'm going to run the room and give everyone a chance to leave if they need to leave. And then I really want to just drill down on the metaverse. I don't really fully understand what that is, but I really want to get to know a bit more about it. So I'm just going to give everyone a chance to leave if they want to. Just a little bit of a pattern interrupt there. Give someone a couple of seconds to sort of politely leave if they need to, and you're welcome to stay if you want to. And then I'm going to bring everyone back with the idea of what is the metaverse. Okay, so here we are. What is the metaverse? This big concept that everyone's talking about, and I really want to just see whether or not this is a thing, whether or not it's practical in the current environment. It's a big idea. Let's start with Chris, because Chris and I have been doing a lot of work in this space as it relates to social audio and virtual events. But I am interested in everyone's thought here. The guest that we actually had scheduled hasn't arrived, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. You know, some people just don't turn up. And he might not have been able to get in. He might have had trouble. He might have had another event, or his internet might have gone down that day. I'll check in a minute. But what do you think, Chris? Or would you like to speak about this? Or what about you, Sharon? Maybe Sharon, because we've talked about virtual events. What do you think the metaverse in your space? This idea of the commercial, corporate space where people need an ROI. They don't really want a learning curve. They just want to meet people and sell stuff, right? So what do you think the metaverse means to the average corporate American or corporate Canadian, if indeed that is a phrase?
I would say 99.5% don't know the word, unless maybe their IT people do. They don't understand what the metaverse is, I don't think. Some of my clients who are CEOs or the C-suite, they're still learning automated email marketing, and how to work in LinkedIn and how to put up a proper professional profile on LinkedIn, let alone Twitter. So let alone social audio. But anyway, the metaverse, I think what it means is it's referring to the AR, VR addition to the choices that we have now. And that would be including gamification. And I think gamification has got a huge run coming up. So they also include in the definition social media platforms, for example. So I'm not entirely certain where this phrase came from. I'm sure whoever your guest was probably knows the genesis of the phrase, and maybe somebody on this call does. But that's what I understand it to be. It's probably the addition of virtual reality and augmented reality gamification.
Yeah, why don't we bring Gia in then? Because Gia is married to an esports coach who must know what this phrase means. I sort of get my head around it, but the idea of the metaverse to me is this virtual environment where we simulate going to the office in the city, which has enormous benefits. We don't have to travel there, and we can simulate an environment, and the world is gravitating towards this. But I think you're right, Sharon. 99.95% of the world are not ready for it. That might be an exaggeration. What do you think, Gia? Or are we a little bit further on than most people think, or is it a bit far away?
No, we're in the right time. This is the right time where we adopt the metaverse. And the metaverse, if you just do a simple Google search, basically it's made up of a prefix, which is meta, and the stem verse. So it basically means to describe the concept of future iteration, 3D virtual spaces, virtual universe, exactly just like the tools we were discussing for virtual events. So virtual events did include the metaverse. And just like you mentioned, social audio is a bit type of a metaverse, I think. Like we're there, we're moving there. Yeah, it is. It is, yeah, because we're including audio now. We're using audio in so many different ways that we have not used before. I mean, we did use it in podcast, in radio before, but now we're including it in social media. So this is a different type of technology as well. Yeah, and when it comes to esports, one of the things I remember when I was doing my MBA, my husband just got into esports. He's an esports coach, and he travels the world to do these events. And one of the things that I liked about COVID is that now all the events are live stream. So he can stay with us. He doesn't have to travel every 3 months to a different country. So one of the things I have done, the assignment, I still remember this, the assignment was actually about a marketing mix, to do something for marketing and how other companies advertise their companies. And one of the best things that I love about this company, it's League of Legends. They have not spent a single penny on advertising. Their advertising was actually made through events.
Wow.
They blew up an entire event. Like when I showed that video to my, because imagine like I'm in an MBA class and it's like all these people in corporate, everyone is like presenting this amazing company and this and that. And I come here with like, okay, everyone, we're going to talk about esports. And everyone just looked at me like, you're serious. Like we're going to do this here for esports. And this was in 2014. And I remember, and then I talked about the company and everything. And then I just, the final showdown was the event. Like I showed everything, and then they just saw how events just exploded the entire company. That's all they did, just events. And because they started this a long time and they live streamed it. So when we were doing League of Legends, we were here, we were in the Middle East, we were in Africa, but we saw we were there with these live events. We were there. This is my CEO. And so then when COVID hit, esports just exploded even further because they adopted this. They took the technology of providing, I think Boyle mentioned it earlier, the digital experience that you get, because live streaming is not just a video call. live streaming goes through a lot of things. And I think that a lot of people, when they come online and they're hosting an event, they don't provide the digital experience. I think one of the speakers also mentioned it, is that when you're on stage, I think Jane mentioned this, when you're on stage, you're using your hands, you're using your slideshow, you're moving around on the stage. But when we're in virtual events, this is it, you know? So if you don't provide the exact digital experience using the metaverse, there's so many amazing tools right now that we can use to revamp our events, to make it lively, to make it engaging. You're basically lost in the space. You're going to be pushed backward, because like you guys mentioned earlier, Zoom fatigue or event fatigue is a real thing. For someone who has done it for a long time, even before the pandemic, it's exhausting. So when we do that, when we provide an engaging experience, yes, one second. When we provide an engaging experience, this is where you leverage your business and your events, and this is where you stand on the top. Basically, people will come no matter what.
Yeah. What do you think, Kiki? What do you have an opinion on the metaverse? I don't think we've chatted about this specifically. I might be putting you on the spot, but have you got a definition that might be useful to the average person in the street?
Well, I think that education has experienced the metaverse. It's meta education that we are experiencing right now. We call it flipped classroom. I have been personally flipping since 2012. It's when we went remote, and everything was happening remote. Many people were using technology. I have been using technology since 2012 with Nearpod, as I said. And then everybody became a Google expert, Microsoft expert, Apple expert. So for education, we are on the same path. It looks different. We do need the machine learning, as I was saying to you yesterday. Google is investing a lot of money on machine learning, and they have a vast sample of teachers and Google classrooms all over the world that they will be using for this metaverse experience that they will be sharing and creating. They are up there. Google with Microsoft, and they are part of this new universe alongside with Bitcoin and all the new trends that are happening right now.
Yeah, that's a fantastic definition. Now, Ray, you're in the room. Tell us your.
How you doing? What's going on?
Very, very good. Now, this particular section is on the metaverse, and we're all sort of trying to get our head around what this actually means. You've got a very good understanding of what the metaverse is. Can you tell us about what is the metaverse and what's the opportunity for everyone on this call and everyone listening? Why should they take notice of this thing that we're now calling the metaverse?
Yeah, at the simplest version, it's a 3D representation of our analog world in a digital world. But there are underlying technologies and that are behind that. One is what's going on with Web 3.0, Internet 3.0. The other is what's happening in the DeFi crypto market. You see digital goods and services manifest themselves as NFTs. We see smart contracts that are sitting in between in blockchain, like Ethereum and Algorand and Solana and Cardano. And then we also see the other parts of the metaverse economy, which is a little bit bigger, right? This is the gaming engines, right? Like Epic, right? What's actually happening with Unity, what's going on in Roblox, which is itself its own little metaverse. And then, of course, there are the chip manufacturers that are behind it. But I think everything we do today is going to be represented in a digital fashion. And I think that's the piece people need to understand. And it's not going to be the 2D digital fashion we have today. It's going to be 3D, and we're going to be able to see it. Now, it started out in many ways where people said, hey, this is spatial computing, this is something else. But the reality here is that we're getting very close to seeing how this is being deployed. And the big piece is it's decentralized. So hopefully that gives people some kind of idea where we're headed.
I love what you've said there. I love what you've said. You know, there's a phrase that I've heard and I love called the digital twin. And that is that you've got a shop, you've got a physical experience, and there's a digital version of that. So the metaverse is simply a digital version of what we're already doing. There's buildings being built in 3D in cyberspace, in the cloud. It's not that difficult to understand the leverage we can make from that, because we live in Melbourne. It's an hour from the city for me to come here. It's 16 hours to get to San Francisco on a plane, mainly over water. It's a long way to come and see you in person. It'd be a lot easier just to meet in a virtual world, wouldn't it?
Oh, it definitely would. And that's not just, that's the first part of it. I mean, with haptics and the ability to get sense, I mean, the only thing we're missing is fragrance and smell. I mean, we're going to get it to that point. So
yeah. So I've seen you interviewed several times about the possibilities. What do you think the real possibilities are? Where is that going?
Yeah, I mean, I think
what are the opportunities? Why do people need to get their head around this?
I think, Keith, the first part is really just a refactoring of the internet. Today, the seller is anonymous. The buyer is completely, gives up all its privacy and identity. I think we're inverting that, where the seller is completely transparent and the buyer actually can remain anonymous, right? We're seeing simple things like that. We're seeing that in peer-to-peer payments. Do we need banking systems the way we have? I'll give you an interesting concept. About 4 years ago, I wanted to buy the mileage program of a Canadian airline. They had 40 million flyers. They wanted 10 million flyers. $400 million is what they wanted for the airline mileage program. People are like, why do you want an airline mileage program? But it's very simple, right? They've got 10 million members. It's tax-free. It's cross-border. It's value exchange. It's funded at a penny per mile. Think about that. You redeem at 1.6 cents a mile. You don't lose money there. You redeem for miles, right? You redeem for magazines at 2 cents. Jewelry, electronics, sporting equipment, it's 2.5 cents a mile. Imagine if I could connect to the rest of that network. And there were Star Alliance, which meant there were 762 million passengers at the other end.
Yeah.
I could turn that into the world's biggest cryptocurrency on day one. 762 million people on the same network for travel, media, entertainment, retail, and financial services. And then guess what? On day two, I'd be the world's largest first-party ad network. Who cares about the cookie apocalypse? You opted in, and guess what? On day three, we could take 2.3 billion people who are unbanked and give them the ability to actually transact among themselves without a central bank, without someone that's charging usury, without a middle person that is not adding any value, right? That's the power of this, right?
I love, Jesus, this is important. This is really, really important. So as an example that relates to the Australian culture, before we had Square, which was started by Jack Dorsey, businesses were paying, let's say, $100 a month to buy a machine, and then they were paying 4% of the price of the transaction to the bank for the convenience of being able to take credit. Right, and so most people just did it because there wasn't any other choice. And then Square comes along and says, look, you don't need a monthly fee. Just buy this little gadget at your local office supply shop for $20. We'll take 0.4% of every transaction. So we've got to make money somehow, but we're not going to rob you blind. Suddenly Square, this little gadget the size of a business card, every business has got one, because this is exactly what you're talking about, isn't it? This decentralized finance idea. And the metaverse is just simply an extension of this. We can live in the real world and people still pay with cash, and people still read the paper, and some people still watch TV every night and suffer through the ads. But these are 80s ideas. I haven't read a paper in 20 years. I don't watch the news at night. I don't use cash because it's so much more convenient to pay with a credit card, to watch Netflix when I want to, and I get my news on Twitter. And it's just an extension of that idea, isn't it?
It definitely is. And one of the things I do hope for, though, is that these transactions are anonymous. And so I don't think it's going to protect our privacy the way we hope it would. And so this is going to sound a little bit backwards, but I want to have and preserve the right to be disconnected. And so I still want to have cash. I still want to have a paper. I still want to make transactions with an option to have paper, because I want a library card that doesn't track what I order. I mean, it's those kind of things. Like, I still believe in privacy. I might be naive, but I still believe in privacy. So
Wow, let's run. This is like a really unique slant, and let's run the room on this. Gia, does this pick up on some of the things we've been chatting about before Ray joined the call? Do you love the idea of centralized finance, the idea of being able to use Square instead of a credit card, or getting your news on Twitter, or watching Netflix without the ads? Can you see this just extending right out?
Yes, definitely. Because now with everything available to us online, different people have different ways of finding their information or connecting to what they want to connect with online. Like, for example, for me, I'm leaning more towards social audio because it gives me the accessibility of just taking it with me everywhere I go. When it comes to financing, however, I'm still old school. Like, what I do is I keep my money in the bank, but I do have different digital wallets. So like, this is for this, this is for that, this is for this. I love how fast it is. Like here we have an e-hailing company called Grab. It's just like Uber, and they have their own wallet. And it's crazy how this app literally took over the market. Like I go into the mall and all I have to carry is this, you know? It's just like scan here, scan there, scan here. I finished my groceries, I ate my food, and I just left. But at the same time, you still get that I like what you mentioned, Ray, is the privacy. Like I still want to feel like this is mine. Like I own this piece of digital asset. It's still mine. So feeling like it's honestly a trust thing. Like, do you trust them enough? Like, do I keep? So that's why, like, for example, I just keep $100 here and there. I mean, I did try big sums of money before, which was really scary, but like, so it's the trust. And I still have people who still want to pay in cash. And I realized it's this habit that we had during the pandemic because everyone was just ordering online. And then I went to the mall one day and I think I lost my data or something. And I realized, oh my God, I don't have cash. And
you
I was
got
like,
no
when was
ringgit?
the last time I had cash?
Do you pay in ringgits or US dollars?
Ringgits. We do ringgits.
Yeah, 4 to 1.
But it's just the fact that like it's just crazy. I feel like we stepped in 30 years ahead into the future just in 2 years.
Yeah, we have. Like Minority Report. There's been a movie about it, hasn't it? Minority Report. Let's run the room. Kiki, I mean, this is slightly different than when we started, but I really wanted to pick up on this metaverse. We've touched on a completely new area, and this is the idea of a digital wallet, the idea of not getting cash, of the idea of getting Netflix instead of real TV. Are you playing this game, and have you seen it play out in your area? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what can I tell you about New Yorkers? They're very innovative. we have been there are people that don't have landlines for years.
Yeah. Okay.
Netflix, Hulu. You wait one day and everything is on Hulu the next day, like straight out. There's no reason to overpay. These are overcharging fees for no reason. I barely use cash. I have been using wallet. I have been paying remotely. Amazon is linked to my credit card, and I use I don't want to advertise, but I use American Express because I'm paying for the lawyers. That's what I say. I have the platinum, and I'm paying for the lawyers because if anything goes wrong, it's one phone call, and I get everything solved. You know, I like that. It is scary. It was a scary move to completely paper. I am paperless in everything. My bank bills, my pay stub, my W-2, paperless everywhere. Everything is direct deposit. Brilliant. I have a cycle on everything because I track it. Like we do our taxes, everything is on Excel. We have everything automation. You know what I mean? Like I know you guys know what I mean. Everything.
Look, let me pick up on what you're saying there. This is the fundamental reason why we do it. We can track everything. We know how much we even label it. We know how much we spend on coffee. We know how much we spend on. And if we had to go down and say, look, geez, we got to shave 10% off our spend. Well, we're spending $100 on coffee a quarter, are we? 50, that's not very hard. Coffee's $5 a throw, and you just get 20 cups of coffee. That's that's like a month's coffee spend. Let's just have coffee every second day. That's going to save us money. So my wife's a bean counter, and she works in finance, and she knows exactly what we're spending on what. we spending this on going out? We want to go out, but if we need to cut down, we can. And I'm really interested in what Samantha has to say about that for a couple of reasons. She lives in Canada, which is, a member of the Commonwealth, and that in itself is interesting. But second of all, she's married to a farmer. She lives on a farm, and she probably knows lots of farmers. Is this something that's really challenging to your community? Am I stepping on some toes here, or are you embracing this?
Oh, I'm laughing because you don't know this, but I'm actually a tax expert by first trade.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Yes, I've done over 7,500 tax returns in my lifetime. So I closed my practice. But what I'm going to speak to is the generational gap that I'm seeing, because you've got the older generation who, I mean, honestly, they just can't even, I can barely catch up, and I'm super techie, but every day is like a full-time job keeping up with what's new. And then you've got the older ones, but like in rural areas, the other day I was talking about like social audio and live audio, and I was talking to 20-year-olds and I was schooling them on it. And I'm like, heck, I'm 47, I'm schooling you. And they're just like, what is Clubhouse? Like, what is this, like something you play cards in or something? And so the divide is what I'm concerned about. And I'm not sure. I think there's a lot of room for businesses to be that I'm going to call translator. So what I was starting to see in taxes before I closed my practice is even things like everything coming in virtual receipts, coming in a receipt, but it comes in your email. Well, what if you use your work email and then you don't work there anymore? And then it comes to tax time and you don't have your charitable donation receipts. You don't have your business receipts. And then the other problem I saw a lot happen is a breakup in a relationship. And usually the receipts all go into one email. So what happens when you go to file your taxes and all of your receipts are in the other person's email, or you get hacked? So like, it is a huge deal. So like in Canada, you can carry forward your donations for 5 years. Well, if they're stuck in some work email, or like, the governments love this stuff, because honestly, people are losing their deductions at alarming rates. They can't access them. You just don't even think about them. And if you're a charity and you're listening, you honestly need to mail your receipts, because it goes to the giver. They can hold it. It's still kind of like cash. And then they'll probably give again, because when they see that receipt and they see the name, they're like, oh, I was generous last year, I'm going to give again. But if you just email a receipt out, which is what everyone's doing now, paperless, they like email it, and then it's gone, and it's gone. And then maybe the tax time, they're like, I'm like, do you have any charitable donations? They're like, I don't know. Maybe, I think I might have given to somebody. So like, I'm concerned that what we need to do is come up with some sort of portal where anytime there's a receipt between a couple, it automatically gets dropped into like another portal where both of you can access it. Or like, anyway, I could probably go on, because I have like a love-hate relationship. I do both. I travel all over the world, and most places I've lived in developing countries. I lived in Ecuador. It's all cash, US cash everywhere you go. Cash is
let me pick up on this. This is really interesting. I've got a friend of mine who teaches guitar in his house, and you pay. And I said this. I mentioned this yesterday, but I'll say it again. So if, for instance, Gia had clients in person, she would have to charge in ringgits, and they would come to her house and they would pay her, 400 ringgits for an hour session, whatever that is in this translation, $100 maybe. And then she gets money in cash, and they pay in cash, but they have to come to you, and you have to be available for them to come. So a mate of mine reads the paper, accepts payments in cash, watches live TV. I don't do any of those three things. And I'm constantly arguing with him about the idea, well, have you thought of having an app to teach guitar? And from this discussion, and even the discussion yesterday with Chocolate Johnny, is a very good mate of mine, I am what we call an early majority. What that means is there's the early adopter, the person that says, mate, not only am I interested in the metaverse, I'm going to build it. In fact, I'm going to buy it. Like Ray's an early adopter, right? He's going to buy the company. And he can see the future. Then there's the early majority like me, and this is exactly where I sit in the world. I'm the sort of person that says, well, if there's enough momentum and people are doing it, like Square, I'll do it. I mean, there's a bit of momentum there. I can see the point. I'm a little bit of a risk taker, and I'll have a go. Then we have what's called the late majority, which is, look, these are people that might be at the moment on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, right? And there are people that says, look, everyone's doing it. I better do it. Everyone in the world's got a YouTube channel and is on Facebook and is you doing LinkedIn events. I better do one because everyone else is doing it, but they come late because everyone's doing it and they feel left out. And then there's people like, and we all know people like this. This is, I don't care what you say, I'm not doing it. We call them laggards. There's lots of words for this. That's the politest one I can think of. You know, I'm not doing it. I don't care what you say. I'm not going on Facebook. I don't care what you say. I'm not going to pay with a credit card, or I'm not getting Netflix, or I'm not going to get into cryptocurrency. And so those four divisions play out in society, exactly what you're saying, Samantha. There are people that are sitting in the late majority saying, what, you want me to stop using cash? You want me to get Netflix and pay for TV? Just the idea of paying for TV is beyond most people's comprehension. Like my wife and I have a fight about this all the time. Just watch it on free. It's free. Yeah, but you got the ads. Yeah, well, just turn them off. Just mute it. So, Ray, do you find this debate happening for you too with the four divisions? Did I explain that accurately? Is that a good definition of the way society usually pans out?
Yeah, there's going to be different levels of that. And I think what the important thing is giving people some choices along the way. I think, you see the divide. I was kind of laughing about the social audio divide, that Samantha was talking about because it was kind of interesting, right? Because we would expect social audio to have taken off in India, but it's not anymore, right? Like it's like very little people are listening. And so you've got this interesting divide that's going on in terms of where things are. But I think we always tell people to follow where the content creators are going to be, because that's really what's going to happen. So where the transactions are, where the content creators are, that's really what kicks off things. And then find the biggest network. And then that's where the adoption is going to occur. And you'll see the segmentation fall apart over time. But most people will probably adopt something if all the content's there, if the transactions are there, if the activity's there. That's what we look at. And then, of course, your four models actually make sense.
And what about Clubhouse versus Twitter Spaces? You had a very unique perspective on this, because my gut feeling, and I'm happy to be quoted on this, I think Clubhouse will become the meerkat of social audio, the MySpace of social audio. It will exist, but it will go away because something will usurp it. I'm very happy to be proven wrong. I want them to succeed. But do you think Clubhouse will be able to run its own game, or do you think Twitter Spaces and something will just come and usurp it? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, the challenge is the content creators are starting to abandon Clubhouse, and they put their lives down. They spent 24 hours a day broadcasting. I think some of these folks put everything they had into it, and they really didn't build out the creator economy capabilities in Clubhouse. And the network isn't big enough. I mean, you get 1,000 followers on Clubhouse, you're kind of excited. But on Twitter, that would be like 10,000 followers. And so I think the impact wasn't there. And even when they launched in India, we thought India would be the perfect place for this to kick in. But I guess COVID didn't sit in long enough in terms of lockdowns in India, because people were just not on there as much anymore. So we've seen some significant drops in Clubhouse over the past 4 weeks, even the last 8 weeks. You can see a noticeable difference in terms of who's listening.
Wow.
Social audio in general, we think it's an interesting medium. We haven't bet on it like in the traditional sense, but it comes back to network. It is definitely the meerkat effect. We see Twitter Spaces. It's not well done. It's poorly implemented. There's a lot of bugs in it. It doesn't hold up like when you have a lot of users, but it's where the network is. So it's a very, very bad comparison. But we think social audio in the long run is a little bit doomed because there's way too much content. And right now we're in that little period where it's a trough where the good stuff will start to bubble up, and then everybody else will get out of the market. And then you'll start seeing like better content over time. So I don't think it's over. We're just waiting for better content.
And better tech.
And better tech, we hope.
Yeah.
But it's one component, right? It's another channel that people are going to leverage.
What do you think, Samantha? Jump in here, because this is almost like a dichotomy. You love social audio. Do you think Twitter Spaces will win? Do you think people will stick with Clubhouse, or do you see it going away as well?
Oh, I agree. Clubhouse is going to be MySpace. There's just nowhere for people to go to get for the networking, because almost a lot of my best opportunities came through networking, and you can network through Clubhouse, but relationships are a little bit more long-term, 6 months, 9 months down the road. You know, on Twitter, I'm going to be reminded of that person. You and I, Keith, see each other's posts. I'm reminded of you. Oh, cool. Even Ray, I just met Ray. I'm going to notice his posts and he's going to notice mine. 6 months from later, he's going to be like, hey, I need to ask somebody about this. I happen to remember that, but it's going to trigger because we've been connecting. We've continued a relationship. I don't know who's going to win out. I think you're just going to have a lot of top players. I mean, we have Instagram, we have TikTok, we have Twitter, we have Facebook. I think depending on the generation where you're going to go, and they're just going to flip, because when Facebook comes out, LinkedIn comes out, and IG comes out, they're going to blow up. But it's a different, it depends on who you want to be with. It's like it's like 7 lanes of traffic and you got to decide which lane you're going to be in. And maybe you can be fat and take 3 of them up, but you know, you can do maybe 3, but you can only go so far. So I think everyone's going to find their niche. They're going to find their spot. Right now, I love Twitter. It's a thought exchange. You know, if I go to IG, I used to do photography. I'm going to share, like, I take these sunrise photos. I don't really share them on my Twitter. I share them on my IG if I want to share beautiful sunrise photos. They're for different things, different parts of our life, different versions. If I want to talk about being a mom and what's going on with my parents and my neighborhood, I go onto Facebook. So I honestly don't like talking about that stuff. I'd rather talk, you know, collective intelligence. I love building on people's ideas. So if you want to talk about that, go over to Twitter. If you want to talk about business and leadership, then you're going to go to LinkedIn. So, you know, they're all different and depends what you want to talk about. And I think you're going to have jumpers. You know, people who can do multitask, I guess, multi-social media like we are now. But I don't know that Twitter's going to win out. They're definitely buggy, but I honestly want to just give them a little bit of a break because Clubhouse is way ahead of the game audio-wise because they've been in it way longer.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
You know, we can't be too hard on Twitter because the other thing with Twitter is they're also running a massive platform on the side, whereas Clubhouse was just doing social audio. So it is hard to be all things to all people. Can Twitter pull it off? Can LinkedIn pull it off? Can Facebook pull it off? I don't know. We're going to see, but heck, I'm in for the ride. So if you can figure one out, you can jump onto any of them.
Yeah. I have a question. Sorry, Keith. I have a question.
Yeah, jump in.
If Instagram and Facebook adopted this and it really worked well, where's the future of Clubhouse? Are you going to leave it? Because right now, like you said, I really like this. You said Clubhouse was just made for audio and that's it. That's why they're so good at it. And I love how they optimize sound for music and those music rooms are running. It's really good. But for us digital marketers, we're using Clubhouse for networking and to connect and bring traffic to our other platforms. But if other platforms actually provided that, where does Clubhouse go? You know, like, am I going to add it into like another live stream? Like I saw this guy the other day. I just wanted to see how people do it, the show. Like I just wanted to learn that. So he went live on Instagram. He went live on Facebook. He went live DMing, live tweets. And then the whole show, it was a Breakfast with Champions. And they went live on Clubhouse. And it was a lot of production, a lot of work. So I was thinking, if he didn't have Clubhouse, would they just keep going on Instagram and just add it as a Twitter space or something like that?
And let me bring Ray in here because he's talking about Discord. You think Discord may be a very good one to watch because that's where all the kids are. And this is a very key determinant. We were having this discussion about Instagram 5 years ago. People are saying, oh, look, I can't see Instagram being a thing. Yeah, okay, now you just watch it. Now look at Instagram. So you think Discord might be the player to watch?
Yeah, I think a lot of the private networks and stuff is happening in Discord. You can see people do all their homework assignments in Discord. Colleges, everyone's on a Discord server. That's basically where things are going. It's kind of like the way when Google Docs got their way into educational institutions, everybody started using Google over Microsoft. That transition happened. That's what's going on the Discord side. And then Twitch is how gamers communicate and gamers kind of connect. So both Discord and Twitch are actually very, very popular social networks that people typically have ignored. And then, of course, whatever happens in Roblox in the long run might actually be very interesting as well. So you're going to see all those things come together. What I really wanted to say about where we're going on social audio is like StreamYard's a great example, this platform that you're using here. I mean, you can broadcast onto LinkedIn, Facebook, Live, Twitter. Twitter's actually, we're doing Twitter. It's switched completely over from Periscope to Twitter, literally, I think this week. So if anybody had a legacy, Periscope backup account. It's now Twitter Live, right? So I really think if the social audio folks that are putting that much money into production, they should just broadcast on the StreamYard as they're doing their social audio and kill all the birds with one stone, because they put so much effort into it.
I would love to pick up on this, Ray. Have you seen someone doing it? I'm trying to find someone that has. Has anyone put their hand up to combine live streaming and social audio? Are you seeing some sort of waves of potential there?
We've done some testing around that because we think it's actually more useful in the long run. But in about maybe January, we're probably going to push everything onto Discord and onto some other platforms instead, because we think that for us, our value is in the B2B marketing space, and it's really about building the networks. And we've got these large B2B communities that we're going to activate on Discord instead of anything else. So you'll see that. You'll see at least one of us try, and then video will be first. And then really thinking about consumption patterns, you literally want your users to be able to consume like in a Netflix kind of style over anything else. So you want to watch 251 episodes of Disrupt TV with me and Vala? Go for it. You can go binge watch it.
Tell us about that. I was going to ask you, what site do you use to do Disrupt TV? It's a lovely looking site. Do you use StreamYard? Do you use Restream? How do you do it?
We use StreamYard, and we push it out to our channels, so including Apple iTunes and YouTube and LinkedIn Live and Twitter Live now. So.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Now, Chris, I know you know quite a lot about Discord and about Twitch. Do you think that what we've chatted about today, with this idea of the kids being on Discord and there being so much sort of choice, do you think Clubhouse will indeed sort of fade away and will move towards sort of more generic places? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure, because I think, like I said, we talked about this before, is that there's just different animals. So while we're using social audio as the connect between these different platforms, they realistically are doing very, very different things. When you start adding in some of the elements that Discord offers, which is the video and the history is a good thing for Discord. Like I said, I've actually built quite a few communities on Discord. It primarily was for the gaming market. You also have another one that's just called Guild, very similar to Discord, and they are very, very, they're unique in their own way. And I met with some of these guys at Discord at the last PAX East that I was able to go to, and it's a very great company. They're very retro, they're very active in the gaming market. But what people are starting to realize is that the model that they built is very useful for organizations that are trying to build communities. And you can use it for business aspects. One of the great things about Discord is they started to merge some of these social audio aspects into their program. So you have both, the ability to go into a chat room just like you can do on Twitter Spaces. But the thing, I guess, the disconnect that most people don't understand, that don't really use Discord every single day, is you have to subscribe into a Discord server. So you're basically becoming part of a community. So when you are in that community, the messages and the things you see are things that you're subscribing to already. So what Discord did is they just added on to that model, and now they've got so many more extra features. They've got basically what is called Discord has a stage, so it's more like what we're doing here, and you can have a presenter. But like I've had one-on-one business meetings on Discord, and when I used to run esports and I used to do broadcasting, we actually created our broadcasting room directly on Discord, because they have higher quality of audio. You can go up to 128K bits and things like that. Yeah.
You can sound like this.
And it's beautiful. It's amazing. And that's one of the big selling points. So what happened with Discord, they had another product called Guild come along. So what people realize, it's very difficult to set up a Discord server successfully and make it, well, it's not difficult for me, but for some people it is. But what Guild did is they created the same model, and they basically streamlined it. So now you can go in there, when you create a Guild account, it says, who are you? What are you? And then based upon that, it gives you a template. So they just simplified what Discord did, and like I said, but still Guild more gaming related. But I'm glad to see that people are adopting Discord and using it for business, because I absolutely love it. And there's so many things that you can add on to Discord. I'll stop at that because it's another passion of mine.
Yeah, well, look, I'd be interested to know whether, and we might finish on this idea of, because we're talking about 2022. Twitter Spaces is definitely a thing. Do you think communities, which is a very new idea, do you think the idea of communities partially picks up on what you're talking there with Discord? Seems to be very community centric. Do you think Twitter Spaces communities idea could take off and could partially fill that gap? So I might start with Ray on that.
Oh, I definitely think so. Let's take the B2B media market. It's completely dead. It's a bunch of bad affiliate link marketing that gets me to some credit card that I really don't want while I'm reading an article about some business issue. That's pretty much dead. All the good content creators have been taken over by the vendors who use them for content marketing, and there's really no real good journalism. So imagine if we actually flipped that around and you actually created these role-based communities where information and insights are put there. People build their networks against that. It'd be a lot easier. Like you'd have the global 2000 that you're marketing against, and you need 10 people from each. That's 20,000 people. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody else is a waste of time. I mean, you really don't care if you're a B2B, vendor marketing to folks because they're not really influencing your decisions. So you actually you don't need millions of people watching. You just need the right 10,000, 20,000, right. even 100,000 if you want to go broad. I mean, 100,000 would be broad in that market.
Let me pick up on this. So the way that communities work, if you haven't yet tried this, Twitter Spaces now has a concept called communities, and you can apply to have a community and you can join a community. And when you are a community owner, you can have 5 invites, and those 5 people can have 5 invites. So 5 becomes 25, becomes 125, becomes 625. So suddenly 625 people linked to this one idea are all involved and passionate about this one idea. And this is exactly what you're talking about, Ray, isn't it? That if you've got 625 actively engaged people talking about a subject they love, of course that's going to work better, isn't it?
About 10x better than doing a Super Bowl ad. I mean, who cares? Everybody else, those folks don't buy. I mean, at the end of the day, like, who cares about marketing? It comes down to, did you buy or did you convert something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, was it an ad? Did you click on something? If there's no action, who cares? It's a vanity metric.
It doesn't matter about numbers. It's about quality, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I don't want vanity metrics. I want actionable metrics on the back end.
What do you think, Chris? Are we onto something here with the communities? 5 becomes 25, becomes 125, becomes 625. 625 active, engaged community members. That's gold, isn't it?
I mean, the multi-level marketing of this is kind of a genius thing. Like, it doesn't work in a business proposition, but it works great for community building. The reason why it works great is because I give you 5 links, or I send out 5 of my closest friends that I feel want to be part of it, right? Next thing you know, I ask them, they're going to do the same thing. I don't even think many people understand that they even have invite links. So I think Twitter, in some cases, and this is one of the things that they're hiring for, and anybody out there is interested in have a job with Twitter and community and Twitter Spaces, they're hiring. This is my dream job. I wish I could just quit my full-time job and go work for Twitter because it's really amazing. But the thing that they don't necessarily do well yet is advertise. They don't really show the full depth of what everything they're creating, and it feels like they're dabbling. And that's the downside. You know what I mean? And I think where that leads is, and they've been very honest, and I actually kind of applaud them in this, where they said, look, we're going to roll this out, and instead of giving this to every single person at one time, we're going to roll this out with 500 people. We're going to try it out. We're going to let this 500 people test it out, and then we're going to make it work. If it works, great. If it doesn't, guess what? It's going to disappear and nobody will know the difference. And it's only being tested with 500 people. And you can see it happening behind the scenes. And they're releasing stuff, the roadmap. They're being very obvious about the roadmap. I don't know who at Twitter started to decide that they wanted to share the roadmap. But whoever that is deserves a round of applause. I mean, 100%. Like, they need to be.
Because you're buying, isn't it? You've bought into it. You're excited.
Yeah, but I think it's also fair to say, like, and a couple of people talked about this earlier, don't let all your eggs lay in one basket, right? So while you're building your brand and we say, I'm going to work on Clubhouse, I'm going to work on Twitter Spaces, what you really should be doing is saying, I'm going to build a website and I'm going to point people there. Because what happens if Twitter Spaces disappears? What happens if Clubhouse disappears? You're going to lose that network you just built. So while you're building on these individual platforms, you could see the thing, you could own one of these little smaller platforms, but what if they close up? You don't have anywhere to go. So you need to start building your brand, building a website, building your Discord's community. I don't know. I put them in different categories, but I think that's where we're at. We're at a stage where it's the infancy of social audio. but there's so many possibilities, you know. But,
and Ray was saying that Discord communities are coming in the new rebuild, or are they here already?
Well, Discord has existed. I think it was 2000. I don't know. I'm just going to throw a number out there. 2015, 16, something like that. I think it's been quite a while since Discord really took off. There used to be other platforms, Team, and what was the other one that was Slack was kind of in existence. The thing that Discord did that made them powerful, it was free. And they offered very robust services and and they looked at optimizing their network to use for gaming that would be able to be played in the background. You know, a lot of these games, the first-person shooters and things that people play, it takes up a lot of bandwidth of your CPU. So you're talking about 85 to 90% of your CPU to run these types of games. So Discord figured out a way to do all that and use less than 5% of your CPU. And it, you know, has overlays built in the games. It's very, very great in that regard. And they worked with developers of games to make sure that you know, the product works especially well. And that's the thing they've done well. And that's the reason why they're one of the market leaders in what I call voice IP social network.
That's amazing. I really love what we're talking about here. I'm doing a bit of a screenshot. So if you want, look at this lovely graphic we've got here. We've got two guys, beautiful girl in the middle, two beautiful women and a guy in the middle. Now, we've got aesthetically pleasing thing there. A lot of people have said that they don't want me to feature the speaker. They want to actually look at the thing. So feel free to take a screenshot here. We've actually been speaking about two hours, and we've created miracles here. We've actually done a lot of work. I want to run the room and give everyone a chance to speak about what they're doing, how that people can contact them, and give people a chance to take a screenshot. Thank you, Kiki, for that. You've sent several to me already. I really love that. We'll be using this in our marketing for moving forward. But let's start with you, Ray. You've got Disrupt TV. Tell us how people can contact you and what's next for you in 2022.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to reach me. You can find me on Twitter at RWANG0 or my blog at www.raywang.org. And of course, pretty easy access on LinkedIn. So usually take most requests unless you're doing something really weird. That's pretty much it. 2022 is going to be interesting for us. Constellation Research, which is the company I'm at, we're doing our 200-person event at Half Moon Bay Ritz at the end of October. We are building more communities in the long run. And one of the things that we've been going after is the early adopter space. And so we are going to go find our clients. That's one of the things that we do. And so we're going to put them into communities. We're going to provide them a whole bunch of services around the communities, from research to events to news to networking to career progression. And I think that's what our customers are asking us for. They've been asking for 11 years. I don't think we've really paid attention to them. They've been asking, and we're starting to find the tools to put them all together. And maybe one day we'll put them all into the metaverse. So maybe you see a Roblox site from us. So.
And what about you, Samantha? What does 2022 hold for you, and how can people contact you about that?
Yeah, I'm Samantha Postman on every platform you can find, so that makes it pretty easy. My DMs are pretty open. And actually, I'm doing a pivot right now. I told you I was a tax expert at One Trade at one point. I was actually building a volunteer platform right before COVID was set to launch in April. And I was telling everyone that the whole world is, one, going to move to pajama churching, and two, do a hybrid work model. And everyone laughed me out of every office.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm like, volunteering is going online, no more serving water at the door for someone. Like, they put me like serving water. I'm like, do you have any idea what I could do to help you like get people into your groups and whatever? But I'm actually pivoting right now. So I'm a multi-achiever, and I'm going to start teaching some people what I did. I went from welfare kid to serial entrepreneur. I've done really well. I've done pretty much anything you can imagine. I've even been in a wheelchair and almost died, and I made it back from that. Like, they thought I was the Canadian government sent me to the Mayo Clinic after a year and a half. I lost everything, almost, like, seriously, and it took me 8 years to get my brain back. I did my master's, graduated when I was like 42, and I'm rocking it. And I want to teach people what to do. Like, you can do anything. Yeah. So I have a bunch of hacks, figured out how to use air miles to travel the world practically for nothing. Took my family to almost every country you can imagine on air miles just by hacking everything. I'm like I'm the one who's going to fast track, find the quickest, most efficient way to get done anything I want to do. My achievement list is high, and I want to start teaching people how to do it. And I want to hang out with people like me who are multi-achievers, who are like, you know what, I rocked at that. Now I want to rock at something else.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to start building some products, share what I learned. And so, yeah, if you want to find out, for now, just go on my newsletter. I'm just about to start it. So if you want to find out about those, people can subscribe to my newsletter and find out what I'm doing.
Brilliant. And did you take a screenshot? Are you a big fan of those? Does this look suit you? Do we want to do a selfie?
That's one of my networking hacks. I teach this all the time. I'm like, anytime you're in a room with people, screenshot it, DM them, leave yourself some breadcrumbs. So later on, you remember how you met, and then say, hey, love to meet you on Keith's show. I loved when you said this, and then include a screenshot. And then I've left myself these little breadcrumbs. And if they don't do it and they reach out to me and say, hey, Samantha, I saw you on Keith's show. I love that you said this. And then I'll be like, oh, I'm so glad you were there. And then I'll like send a screenshot in or something like that. So it'll help remind me.
So you've got a few, so send them to me, and that's great. Chris, tell us what you're doing there, and what's 2022 look like for you?
Well, I mean, I'm starting to really dig into the whole entire world of social audio. We talked about this quite a few times, but I'm actually doing a deep dive into all of the different social audio apps, and my intention is to compare them, but basically figure out what the differences are and build an evergreen site where people can take a look at what is different about these social audio sites. So I have a newsletter, I have a website. We're doing live shows talking about social audio all the time. And like I said, I've heard this before. If you want to become an expert in the field, you got to spend a lot of time. And social audio, this version of social audio has not been around for very long. But I think what's most important is just doing the work. While I said, well, why would you want to spend time on 60 different apps? Well, I don't have to spend time on 60 different apps. I can basically learn from others who are using those apps, and I can ask them important questions, and I can get the information I need. I can get the reviews I need. And it's most important is just to figure out what people are doing and why they're doing it. And I'm good at building lists. So you can find me on Twitter at Social Audio Guy, on Twitch at Social Audio Guy. Pretty much, I moved everything to Social Audio Guy now. I was a streamer on Twitch for a long time, but it's easier to have everything just under one name. So I'm going to own it.
Brilliant. And what about you, Gia? Tell us what you're doing there in KL and how people can contact you running forward. I think we got you on mute there.
Yes, I am. I'm Juwaidia. I'm Gia, and I just put my handle on my name. It's the same thing everywhere. It's the same name, Gia Al Hassan. My name is Juwaidia, but since I came to Malaysia, everyone's calling me Gia to cut it down short. So it's Gia Al Hassan everywhere. You find me. I'm literally everywhere. And I'm actually a clinical nutritionist who specializes in cancer and blood cancers. And this is what I specialized in. And I'm always moving. I'm always trying to achieve new heights. I'm always trying to achieve new careers, new industries as well. I love learning. And so after I finished clinical nutrition and I've done it really well, I've got the honors, I've done an amazing research, but then I felt like that was it for me. That was my ceiling. And then I moved into doing my MBA, and that's when I started again from scratch. And after my MBA, I dove into the online world. I had a vision is that once I started having kids, and corporate world was not fitting my dreams and goals with my children. And my passion was I had to find a way where I can combine the two worlds without sacrificing the other. And I found the online world, and I really wanted to just learn about it. And once I learned like this vast space of just growth and meeting and networking and just unlimited growth, really. And I was passionate about it, and I was sharing about it with everyone. It was to the point that I really wanted to learn how to do this right, that I actually agreed to do projects for $5 an hour, which is illegal. It's just illegal. $5 an hour.
You see the bigger picture. You sometimes got to suck it up because you can see the bigger picture, yeah?
Exactly. And my friends were like, Gia, you just did an MBA. You have honors in this. You have researches. Are you going to do this for $5? I was like, yes, because I have a vision. I have to learn this. I have to take everyone. Let's go. It's a journey. We have to do this. And that was in 2015. Let me throw this back to you, Gia.
Yeah. You've said to Samantha that she's an inspiration, and she is. Yes. But you are an inspiration. You've done an MBA. and now you're working online. You see the bigger
Yeah.
picture, and it's coming forward for you. Yeah.
Yes.
This is
yes,
this
it
is
really is.
it's a really good story to share. And,
Yeah.
and Kiki, tell us what you're doing and what 2022 might mean for you, and tell us how we can find you.
Well, I'm the teacher in the group. So I teach kids with disabilities. I'm an ENL teacher in District 75. I jumped over the past 2 years to places that it would take me probably 5 years to get to. I got certified in many areas. I have been working with Apple and Microsoft and Google. I have gotten certifications. I'm working also with Nearpod. I'm a coach. I'm a mentor. I'm a model teacher. I love my job. I have been doing all these things for free, and I get a kick out of it. But I do think that in my near future, there is a monetizing possibility somewhere, whether that is creating a book, writing a story, selling it on Netflix, getting on Bitcoin. I don't know. However, I know that I wasn't who I was 2 years ago. I am a very different person, and I keep helping the people that I feel need help, because there are many people that don't know where to go. And I am that teacher that you wish you always had near you as a mentor. And I'm doing this for free. And I do think that, and I do believe in positive energy, and I do believe in paying it forward. And I do think that in the future, all these that I'm giving for free will come back to me tenfold. So people are going to reach out to me, get to me. And I have that feeling because that's what I'm putting out there.
That is so brilliant. So brilliant. Now, we've been going 2.5 hours. It's almost as long as a StreamYard session. I've sat in the chair for 2 hours, and I'm pretty proud of myself. So I'm going to wrap up, but I just wanted to thank everyone on the call for coming on the call, everyone who's been on the call, all the comments that we've had all throughout the world. And we've been on LinkedIn, we've been on Twitter, we've been on YouTube. And this is a case study in itself for what live streaming can do. We're going to get the recording. We're going to get the MP3, the MP4. We've got screenshots. We've shared a chat. We've met new people. And I think that this really is the future. 2022 will be a combination for me of social audio and live streaming. And I can't wait to do more of this. So I'm just going to play a little bit of theme music, and then I'll let everyone go and get on with their day. But I really wanted to thank everyone for being part of this. And we'll see you again on the flip side.
Can all of us do a little clap for Keith? I know you didn't ask for this, but he did such an amazing job, and I want to thank you so much, Keith. Thank you. It's a lot of work having us all on. Oh my gosh, you did amazing.
It really is.
Rock at this.
Why don't we do a little bit of a screenshot just to finish off? That's a nice one. Bring Chris up there on the top, and me there. And this is the great thing about StreamYard. You can move things around and make them pretty. So I'll take a bow, and you guys just go on with your day and take some screenshots with this positioning, and we'll do more of these. It's been well worth the effort, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. All right, we'll see you later.
It was enjoyable. Bye, everyone.
Bye. See ya. Maybe we'll get some coffee in Melbourne.
See you
later.
Atomica or I don't know. You guys are Patricia's.
Thank you for all the viewers that tuned in and watched the show.
Thanks again, Keith.
Oh, yes. Thank you for everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Yeah, reach out to some of us, DM us, connect.
See you later.